2, 3, go.
Hey everybody, it's Aram Banyan.
Timothy Bennett.
Welcome to bandbbanterbros, episode number 10.
10, woohoo!
We made it to the double digits.
Yeah! And it didn't take a whole year.
Right? which we thought it might, but you never know.
Right? No, we're going pretty strong, I think.
Yeah.
Been able to pump out, I think, a couple a week, so that's not too bad.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
I think the average I read was like a couple a month, so unless you're Joe Rogan, who does six episodes a week.
Yeah, I mean, Homeboy's got time to do it too.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like,
Well, that's like...
not like he's doing anything else.
That's true. Yeah, he's pretty much... that's all he's doing, really.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today?
I think we decided to do movies this time around.
Movies.
We're still not at least prepared enough to do books, so we're going to move back into more familiar territory.
I mean, we probably could pull it out our ass, but...
I mean, we could, but
I mean, we could talk about books. We just...
like the book we're reading together, we're like...
Yeah, we're not even
on the same page.
I'm still on chapter, 6.
Yeah, I mean, Tim and I have both stalled out kind of reading for a little bit. We're just kind of doing other stuff, so...
Well, and this is my second time through, too.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry that I'm behind the times.
Well, it's okay. I made you stop reading Hollywood Dead
Yeah.
by Richard Kadri just to start this one because it was a D&D book. Like,
Right.
It's a D&D world.
And I'm halfway through it. I mean, it's good.
It is good.
Yeah.
I almost thought about starting the second book today when I was mowing the lawn.
I was reading about the second one. I was confused for a moment that it's not about the same characters.
No, but
it's
an appearance.
No, they make an appearance. Yeah.
It's Gabe's daughter.
Yeah, it's her band, which is Fable.
Yep. I'm curious on how that one's going.
Yeah, we
gotta finish that
different podcast.
So anyway, we're gonna talk about movies again. Yeah, because that's what we do best. Definitely what we do best.
I mean, I got home from work yesterday. I didn't even get my gear off, and we were talking about movies yesterday.
That's true. It's a hard thing not to talk about between us.
Oh yeah.
It's like just second nature. It's like breathing.
Yeah, for sure.
Each breath we take, movie this, movie that. Quote this, quote that.
There's a smell. I can equate a movie to this.
Right. So, well, yeah. What do you want to start us off? Or did you have something? We were gonna talk about the trailers.
Yeah, some of the trailers we talked about in the last movie episode.
Yep.
We've actually watched a few of the movies.
A handful of them,
yeah. Tim's watched more than I have, but I also work full time and have a 5-year-old that doesn't let me watch whatever the fuck I want when I'm home. So
right, and right now I'm not really working.
Exactly. Tim's got a little extra time on his hands.
So,
but I've managed to watch 3 of them. We both have watched Changeland, which was Breckenmeyer and Seth Green.
It was fantastic. It was directed and written and starred
by Seth Green. Yeah, it was a wonderful movie. I know when we talked about it the first time, I talked about it looking or seeming to me like it was a more adult version of Without a Paddle, and I couldn't have been more wrong.
Right. It was taken a lot more serious.
Oh God, yes. It was.
It had such serious undertones with a little bit of comedy, just kind of.
The two funniest characters were at the same time the two most profound characters I found. Were Macaulay Culkin and Randy Orton.
Yep.
The wrestler.
Yep. 6'5".
Yeah. Seth Green is like my size. Yeah, so it gave me a really good point of reference as to how looming Randy Orton is, because he just towers over Seth Green like he's a child.
Yes, he definitely is. He's a bigger guy compared to anybody else.
And he doesn't seem it. Like if you I watch wrestling.
Yep.
And he doesn't seem small, but it doesn't seem that big.
He doesn't seem like he towers over like some other people do, like the Big Show or anything.
He doesn't have that gravitas comparatively to other wrestlers where they just regardless seem like they tower over people. Like he's got a different sort of feel to him.
I think it's because he's a tall guy. Like he's like 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
But he's not like a bodybuilder big.
He's very slight.
Yeah. He's athletically big built.
Yeah. He's well defined. He's not rippling with muscles.
Yeah. He looks like he would have gone into the Olympics as a I don't know, disc thrower.
Right.
or something. He's definitely not like a big bodybuilder The Rock or some of those other people. He definitely looks more like a natural athlete. and fits his size. But yeah, he just hovered over. Yeah, like, it was two of Seth Green put together. It was, and Seth Green's a very skinny, petite looking dude. He's a small tiny
guy. Like I say, he's my size.
And so is
Breckenmeyer. Who was only like an inch or two, like maybe taller.
Maybe taller, but about the same build.
Yeah. And they just look like children next to Randy Orton.
Yeah, just ants. Just ants. Very and they pulled it off as that frightening fear when he comes up to him at the bar. And he's like, what are you guys doing here? Yeah, what are you doing at this bar? And he's just so terrified, like a small crippling child.
Yeah. Like I say, him and Macaulay Culkin, though, ended up being the two funniest characters in the movie.
Macaulay Culkin was, you swear to God, he's just tripping on something. Yeah. He's just doped out of his mind.
For sure.
But then, like, because after the show, I kind of got into his podcast, listening to stuff. Yep. And then there was, he was on Joe Rogan, so I decided to watch that too. And he kind of comes off like that almost. Mm-hmm. Sure. And it didn't seem like it was too far-fetched from the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
He had mentioned that he spent almost the entire time when he was in Thailand, he spent almost the entire time sitting in his hotel room getting drunk. So he probably was shit-faced when he was on that boat. But and then apparently he came back and he got the worm. He got a worm. Oh. And not from like you would get from tequila or anything. Apparently the island
parasite?
Yeah, apparently the island that they were on or the area that they were on were like cats swarmed everywhere. They're just everywhere, including the hotel rooms. And like he would come in and he had to like either shoo the cat out or let him in, one of those two. And he thinks that because of the cats were around, and they're just wild cats or street cats.
They're not fixed or vaccinated.
And he thinks that he got it from eating something that maybe the cats had touched, which makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
But yeah, he ended up getting back and catching a worm.
That's funny. So, I mean, the premise of the movie essentially is Seth Green finds out that his wife is cheating on him. And so the movie opens with him getting up and getting like things together, and he goes to the airport and takes a flight. I believe they end up in Egypt is where he meets with Breckenmeyer.
Dubai.
I think that's in Egypt.
Somewhere around there.
I think. I don't remember.
But
they're in Dubai.
Somewhere, yeah.
So that's where they kind of meet up, and you kind of understand that they're friends, and that's where you find out that Seth Green's wife is cheating on him.
And the entire time in this 5-minute intro,
Seth Green says nothing.
He doesn't say anything. He's very stone-faced. He's almost just like not there. The lights are
it's
on,
just a
but
blank
nobody's
stare that he's just kind of staring. Yeah. Especially there's a part where you can see him riding an escalator and people are just passing him by and he's staring off to the left at nothing, and he's just not even registering that people are pushing past him. Or he's on one of those moving sidewalks, in which case he was on the wrong side where because anyone that knows a moving sidewalk knows that there's a side where you stand, there's a side where you walk. And he was apparently on the wrong side because everyone else on the other side was standing still too. So, But so they go from there. They go to Thailand, and they proceed to get into. It seems like they're going to different spots each night, and I don't seem to quite understand the way that trip worked.
So the whole thing is he was gonna Seth Green's. I can't remember his name. Do you remember his name was in the character?
Oh God, no.
Seth Green's
Brad or Ben or something like that. I can't remember.
Anyway, Seth Green's character had done a surprise honeymoon to Thailand, and he had set up and booked this hotel.
He did it a year in advance.
Yeah, in a year in advance, and it was supposed to be a surprise. So he didn't tell his wife, and then he found out all this shit, and he decided to go anyway. So he brought his best friend along.
He just dipped on his wife, who throughout the movie he's getting calls from his wife, and you hear voicemails saying haven't heard from you, or I'm working late. Half of them seem like she doesn't realize he's gone.
Yeah, and it's been 2 days, and he hasn't.
Because it takes at least 18 hours or something probably to get to Thailand from.
Especially if they stopped from Dubai. Yeah. So I mean,
because I have no idea how long they were in Dubai. Yeah,
gotta be a long time. But it's she doesn't even know he's gone.
Doesn't even notice, and. So you start to get this weird sense, I had this weird sense that maybe there was a misunderstanding, but the longer it went on, it was no, he's not misunderstanding anything, because he talks about finding text messages or emails or something like that, and all that other jazz.
But the way that he comes across it, you believe him.
Yeah.
Like, full-heartedly, you are convinced that he definitely was getting cheated on.
Yeah. He is.
Don't question it.
He is a hapless sort of victim. Like, things just happen to him, like, and he just lets them almost. Like, he doesn't even realize that, like, he's being affected, or he doesn't understand the full ramifications. There's, like, the conversation between him and Breckin Meyer. Breckin Meyer's character is his friend who is a photographer that travels the world. So, like, you know, Breckin Meyer even mentions, like, oh yeah, I'm going to Greece after this, so this worked out perfect. Like, I'm already halfway there. And so they have a discussion at one point that Seth Green's character didn't show up to his first gallery show. And
like his very first, it was his work, it was his stuff, and it meant a lot to him.
Breckin Meyer, they were discussing, I think Seth Green says, well, I showed up. He's like, you showed up to the gallery opening. Like, you didn't show up to my showing. Like, and he's like, that was, like, you were being a bad friend. Like, Breckin Meyer is trying constantly to call him out, and, like, he even has this really nice spot where, like, he finds out right away, he's like, that Seth Green thinks his wife is cheating on him. He says, well, then, you know, next step is simple. Like, do you want to fight or not?
Yep.
And Seth Green, who is the tropish sort of over planner.
Yep.
Doesn't like to take chances.
Hence why he planned this a whole year in advance.
Yeah. Over plans, doesn't like to take chances. And Breckin Meyer's like, he's like, oh, it's not that easy. And Breckin Meyer says, it is that easy. Like, you figure out that question, everything else follows. And
it was 100% true too.
Oh, for sure.
As soon as he said that, I'm like, it's
that's exactly what I said.
You do something about it or you don't. And if you don't, well, you know the answer.
Exactly. So they're going through, like, they run into the first night, they go to dinner and stuff like that, and they go on a boat tour the next day, and I can't remember her name, but is the Asian chick from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Brenda Song.
Is that who that is? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think she's pretty hot.
She's basically the guide for this boat tour they take, and she's using pen,
like what you write with.
That's a joke she makes. She's using this thick, overly done accent that everyone is eating up.
Yep.
And then so they go on some trip, and that's where the discussion about, you know, Breckin Meyer saying that Seth Green wasn't being a good friend happens, and then
you have Claire Grant, which is actually Seth Green's wife.
Oh, word?
Yep. The one who was into Dave, or the other person on the boat.
Breckin Meyer's the one love interest.
Yep.
Wow, Seth Green actually let Breckin Meyer kiss his wife.
Yep. Well, he kissed Brenda Song, so.
That's true. But she's not married to Breckin Meyer.
No, I don't think. I don't think he has a chance. Oh, maybe he would. I don't know.
Who knows? Whatever. But yeah, so Breckin Meyer also meets a girl that's like the other tour guide, but she's the one not talking, and she's the classic, like, because Breckin Meyer's the suave one, he has to go after the girl that's not interested.
Yep.
And so the movie's full of, like, weird little tropes like that, but it's actually still a really good movie. And so what is it? The next night they go to another island or something like that, and then it's after their discussion, the little argument they have that.
Yeah, they have this little argument. The friends, Seth Green and Breckin Meyer have this little argument because it was kind of like when he was bringing up, you were being a shitty friend.
Yeah.
You weren't. I've always been there for you, and you were being a shitty friend, and pretty much your wife says that I shouldn't be in your life, kind of thing. Yeah,
he says flat out, he's like, I don't. Well, because Seth Green even says, like, well, you never liked whatever her name was, and he's like, I don't like the way she treats you or the way you let her treat me.
Yep.
Like, and so, like,
which is fair.
Oh, totally fair.
And it sounds like they've been best friends for. I know they said how long, but they've been best friends for, like,
since childhood.
Since childhood.
Like, they were they knew each other when they were kids.
Elementary and Yep. You know, so they've been best friends for a long time, and they're brothers. And they even said, he's like, "You're my family."
Yeah,
like, I'm your family.
That's what, he has a conversation. They're like, "Well, you weren't in town. Like, why did you not want me to come to Christmas, or why didn't you invite me?" He's like, "You weren't in town." He's like, "I was in town for 18 hours. I could have shown up for a few hours." And he's like, "Well," and he's like, "That's what you don't get. Like, you're my family. When you call, I show up." You know, and things like that. But yeah, that night after that whole argument, Breckenmeyer essentially takes Seth Green on a walk, and they end up at like a Buddhist temple or site of some kind. There's a monk there, and you find out that Breckenmeyer is a Buddhist, apparently.
Yeah. At least he knows what to do. That's
because
sure.
like he
He's
was
explaining.
like teaching Seth Green how to like properly bow and like why he was bowing so many times and things like all these other things. So you get the impression that Breckenmeyer's at least done his homework, if not like is a practicing Buddhist.
Yep. But you know, I mean, being a photographer, it kind of makes
possible,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's traveled enough. He probably has realized that it's kind of universal.
Yeah,
So.
I'm actually kind of reading up on Buddhism right now anyway, which it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so that's that night. The next day they end up going on a boat tour with Macaulay Culkin, and Macaulay Culkin's partner. I'm not sure if it's like a
love interest
love
or if
partner
it's just
or like just a business partner. Yeah.
That's just extremely close.
Yeah, there's an intimacy to their relationship that I didn't quite grasp and was never really explained. Obviously, it doesn't matter too much. It was just like something curious. Mm-hmm. But you know, they do things like they go cliff diving, and Seth Green chickens out and kind of gets down on himself about chickening out. And then like I say, Macaulay Culkin's character has a conversation with Seth Green about Macaulay Culkin saying he grew up in like the Midwest somewhere.
Yeah,
I can't remember where. But
Idaho or maybe or something.
Idaho or Iowa, one of the two, one of the I's. And said that I grew up in a small town. Like you either joined the military or like you stayed in town and became whatever. And I just couldn't handle that, so I left. And he's like, and I've been here for, like, what's he say, like 10 years?
Yep.
Something like that. And Seth Green's like, well, don't you miss your life? And he's like, he says, and this is where he became a profound character that I wasn't expecting. He's like, says something akin to like, how can I miss life when I'm out here living it?
Yep. Yeah,
and,
you can't miss what you're already doing. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, and Macaulay Culkin's even said like that wasn't the life for me anyway. And that's the first really profound thing that's said. And so they go to their hotel after all that nonsense. They meet another couple that throughout the next little bit, there's a couple exchanges where they talk about spouses and whatnot, because the other couple is a newlywed couple.
Yep, from London.
Yeah, and they talk, and like Seth Green gains insights like from both sides into marriage and whatnot.
And Macaulay Culkin and that interaction between those new
when
couple
he's
was pretty interesting.
He's like calling out names, and he's like, oh, I see we have a newlywed couple, and like, where are you from? And like one says, oh, I'm from London, and the other's like, oh, I'm from outside London. He's like, oh, it's just like your neighbors. And like, well, we live together now. He's like, well, I would be kind of weirded out if you didn't.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, so that night they go back out with Macaulay Culkin to go drinking, ostensibly. There's something else that's going on, but essentially it sounds like they're just going to go drinking and go to the bars with Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, they're going to watch Muay Thai fight.
Yeah, well, and that's like they don't tell you that originally. They just say we're going.
They do. Yeah, he's like, they were like, you're gonna come and watch me Muay Thai fight.
Really, did I miss that?
Yeah, they just said it.
So I just remember Breckenmeyer like knocking on the door of Seth Green's room and be like, "We're going to the bars with so and so."
Yep. Yeah, he says what
I
they're
missed
gonna
that
do.
then. Oh, my bad.
I mean, he may have said you're coming out, but he tells them before they go.
Oh, word.
And then he actually wins.
Yeah.
He gets.
I'm the greatest fighter.
He downs a bucket of fruity alcohol first.
They're serving drinks in sand pails.
Yeah, little sand pails.
And yeah, so Macaulay Culkin grabs one, like he's got kickboxing gloves on, grabs one and just drinks it. Yeah, he's wearing bunny ears.
Which is his
podcast.
Yeah, well, it's his signature.
Yeah.
It's the bunny ears.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, so Macaulay Culkin wins the fight, and then that's when we run into Randy Orton.
Yep.
They're trying to get more drinks at the bar, and Randy Orton is just buying shots for everybody, and then all of a sudden sees Seth Green and Breckenmeyer, and as I said, looms like some sort of nemesis over them for a moment, grabs them both around the shoulders, like, what are you doing at this bar? And then all of a sudden he's like, without a shot. And he starts buying shots for him. And he keeps saying, is it Ngala or something like that?
Something
I
like that.
missed what that's supposed to mean.
It probably just means like bless. It's like probably like salute. Like
Probably. I don't know.
good spirits.
I thought maybe I missed that someone
drinking,
saying
I
like
don't know.
what it meant.
They may have said. I don't recall either. But
Like I said, I missed it. And then Randy Orton becomes the second profound character because he like talks about why everyone's at this bar and like wanting to feel like wanting an escape and wanting to feel safe and wanting, and I can't do it justice because it was actually really well delivered.
Yep.
I was really impressed with that part. Then like Randy Orton like reveals that he brought half the people in the bar with him on a boat. And he's like, we're sailing to Hong Kong. He's like, you have a boat? And he's like, technically it's a yacht. It was like, what the fuck?
Yep. So apparently he's got money. He's doing something right. But
and okay, so there's a small scene that I missed that I didn't go back. Like the two guys that Seth Green and Randy Orton go see, and like he pours him a drink out of a bottle that like he's like, this is the last bottle in existence or whatever.
Mm-hmm. First of all, the entire time that's happening, so Randy Orton's character comes off very misleading because he comes off, he's this big towering brute kind of figure, and every time he talks to them, it almost instills a sense of fear. Like, is he going to kick our ass? What?
Yeah.
I mean, they're in a strange land, so like, they're not sure who this fucking guy is that keeps coming up to him, and he just reverts to, or I can't even say reverts because he hasn't really changed. He just comes off this stern, intimidating guy, and then you find out he's actually really super nice. And then he leads Seth Green out into the backwoods somewhere.
Right, and this is the part that I came in at the end.
And you're just like, what the fuck is he doing? This is such like shady shit, some sketchy shit. Is he gonna like murder this dude? And he brings him up to these two guys, and one's in like this fancy like 70s, like Miami Vice suit,
right,
and sunglasses at night. And then you have this other dude, and you almost feel like there's like a drug thing going on, or some kind of gang related thing, or something once again mischievous going on.
Yeah.
And then, you find out that it's this bottle that he's going to let this guy drink.
Yeah, well, what was the significance of the bottle, I guess?
I don't know. I think it's just because he asked him, well, why me?
He's just, why not
Why
you?
not? So I think the whole point of that was kind of a symbolic. It was supposed to be a metaphor to kind of symbolize him saying that he's worth more than he thinks, and he doesn't have to have an answer for everything.
Right.
So beautifully done.
Oh, yeah.
But you just like... Is he gonna die?
I got the
the
weight of the statements, like, especially the part where it's just like, well, why me? Why not you? Like that part I got. I just like I missed how they got there.
He just told him, he's like, hey, I'm gonna take your friend, and he just leads him out into this back alley wooded area where these two guys are sitting, and you don't know what's going on. So I actually thought maybe it was gonna like he was gonna turn him into like a drug mule.
Right.
Like that's what I initially thought.
Because I remember
when he comes out with a bottle, I'm like, well, that's not right.
I remember from the previews, like there was a fight, like Seth Green gets into a fight, and I was like, this is how he gets in the fight. Like, but I was wrong. That happens after.
Yep.
Like he comes back and he goes to the bathroom, and like
this guy's like
one of the guys that works at the bar, who's a fighter for the bar.
Yep.
Was like, I'll kill you.
Yep. Me and you fight. I kill you.
Yeah, he tries to pick a fight with Seth Green. He was like, no. And just runs in the bathroom.
Yep.
And like goes out to Breckenmeyer after. Was like, oh, a guy tried to pick a fight with me. And Breckenmeyer explains like, oh, he's he works for the bar. That's his job.
Yep.
He's supposed to do that. And then they go smoke a joint, and then they come back, and for whatever reason, Seth Green
gains
like,
the confidence.
gains the confidence to go fight this guy. I was like, you still want to fight? And the guy just goes, I'll kill you. And so he's like, whatever. And so they get in the fight, and then Seth Green is vastly overmatched.
Yep. And he starts hitting for real, and he's like, oh, is this for real?
And Breckenmeyer plays a very funny corner man because he's like, what you're doing is you're letting yourself be hit. Don't do that.
Yeah. and he was saying he was announcing his punches.
The second time was like, now what you're doing is you're announcing your hits. Like you gotta stop moving forward when you're gonna when you throw a punch.
Well, he was just shouting. He's like, punch.
Yeah, that's right. He says, I think at one point you yelled punch before you punched.
Yep.
And Oh, and I forgot to mention, at this point, they've ran back into the 2 tour guides from the boat.
Yep,
Brenda Song and What's-Her-Face. And Brenda Song is now using a regular American voice.
Yep.
To which Seth Green has a funny reaction of, that's racist.
Yeah. And then this whole conversation, like, it's not racist if she's
like, she was just like, I'm Thai. I can eat the... And the other girl's like, I think what you mean is it's racial.
Yeah. The film was good. It was super good.
It's well worth a watch.
Yes, it was really well written.
For Seth Green's first try at something serious, well done.
First time acting, first time directing, first time.
Well, it's first time acting, but doing all the other shit at the same time.
All at the same time. Yep, it was his first time doing the trio. And if you ask Mel Gibson when he did Braveheart, it almost killed him.
Yeah.
And then in this case, of course, not at all remotely the amount of physical stress, but Seth Green said in the podcast that he did with
Macaulay
Culkin, he said that if he was to have done something different and kind of like retrospect of making the film, he says he would have wanted to maybe have acted a little better.
Sure.
And I was like, I mean, he did great, but I think what he was saying is he was not used to directing and writing and trying to envision himself.
He probably wasn't putting quite as much into the acting.
I think that's what he was saying, because he was focusing on make sure everything looked good, everything was set right. He was being the director and the writer, and then he was probably saying
acting was a secondary thing. Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
But it still was great.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job. I mean, I can understand him saying he wanted to do better, because I mean, it's one of those things. Like, of course, there's room for improvement, but
his character, I thought it was appropriate. Like his character didn't have a lot of dynamic. He was just this depressing, slothy kind of guy,
white toast sort of guy.
Yep.
Like very much so.
Yeah. It was. Oh, and the hotel when they walk into the hotel. And,
the first one?
Yeah, and well, it's all the same hotel that they're staying at.
I thought they traveled to a different one.
No,
because they bring their luggage on the second one.
It's a package thing. Yeah. So they're just like, you got this honeymoon package deal, so they're going on a bunch of tours.
They leave that because they say goodbye to that bellhop.
Yeah, they do. They do. Say
and they bring their luggage with on the next boat tour to go to another island, I think. Because the maitre d' comes up and says, "Oh, we'll take your bags. You're due on a boat tour."
Okay, yeah.
So I think there's a different hotel.
Possibly. Either way,
I think
when they go to the first hotel, or when they go to the hotel, the
concierge
guy, the guy behind the counter thinks that they're a gay couple.
Yeah. Well, because it's supposed to be a honeymoon. They booked the honeymoon suite. It's the newlyweds.
He's like, I was supposed to be here with my wife, and he's like, yeah. Couple, whatever.
Breckenmeyer just does not help the situation at all. Just kind of looks at him and just smiles wistfully. And
then he's like, no, I'm here with my friend. It's like, yes, shh, friend. Shh. So he's like,
constantly doing those.
We need 2 rooms. It's like, oh, yes, 2 rooms, yes. And then here's the door to the,
that's right,
the conjoined rooms.
He goes out the door and he's like, shh.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
That was a really funny scene. I say it. Well done. Much better than I expected.
Honestly, out of 5 stars, I'd given it some thought, and I'd give it a full 5 stars in my book. Yeah. In my opinion, out of things that I have watched, that is right up there with extremely well written. Mm-hmm. Story was actually had a point to it. Yeah. The plot was, it had some purpose, and the acting was appropriate because it wasn't like you needed some dramatic actor No,
you weren't looking to go get an Oscar for this. No. Like, you were making something just because you could.
And it was an independent film. So
it's Seth Green's first try. I think I would give it, if I didn't give it a full 5, it's only because to me there were just pieces that were like unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I mean, at the same time, like you chop those out and all of a sudden like the movie's much shorter than it needs to be. And I mean, I don't know. That's my only criticism, but I think it was a wonderful movie. I would buy it. It's well done. Watch it if you get a chance.
Yes, agreed, 100%. Watch it if you can. It's on Hulu.
Yep. So
Hulu
for sure.
If you have Hulu, watch it. Otherwise, I don't know. Go find the movie and buy it. So, yeah, that was definitely the first film that I watched out of our list.
Yeah,
right
me too.
away. I had seen it and I was like, oh, I'm intrigued, but yeah, we just made it happen.
And then after that, we both watched Plus One, which was Jack Quaid and
I have no idea.
I couldn't tell you the name of the girl in the movie, but it doesn't really matter. I believe she's in the Hulu show Pen 15, which is
Never
about
watched
two
it.
girls. Like, it's about two girls in high school.
I just know it spells penis.
Right. And essentially, and Tim and I both, like, it was fine to have watched once.
Yeah,
But it's
I don't
really
need to watch
not
it again.
worth much after that.
The movie had a very the entire thing was extremely predictable. Every move that they made, everything was predictable. So you didn't really leave anything for like.
The only thing that it did that was interesting to me was it took the usual trope of the girl looking for Mr. Right and the guy being just raunchy, and they twisted it
swapped
around.
Yep.
That's the only really intriguing part. But even then, it was like Jack Quaid was just a bitch the whole time.
It was whiny, yes.
Whining
so
about
whiny.
everything. Like nothing
He
was
had
good enough.
High expectations. He lived in his own fantasy about what love
Yep.
was, and he consistently fueled on the idea of what a perfect like relationship was going to be, or what perfect love was going to be.
Yeah.
And yet, when he had what he wanted, he was just too dumb and too blinded
And, like,
from the fantasy to see it.
And of course, at one point, his friends even call him straight out on it. And
Yeah,
he's like, no.
Dude,
And
you're just being a little bitch.
yeah, and the girl was...
At a wedding, because he starts getting shit faced.
Yeah.
He started being that guy.
Right. The girl, I feel like the girl was just trying to channel Aubrey Plaza at her comedic best, but like was just way too over the top about it.
I did not like her because she was raunchy. It was entirely unnecessary, and it was annoying, especially the way that she was trying to do these like dick and fart jokes kind of thing.
For sure.
The only time I liked her character was when she was actually being serious. Like when she was crying, when he tried to break up with her or did break up with her.
Yeah, those were points she actually did well.
Yep, and I actually liked her character because she straight out said
Called him on his
exactly what
shit,
it was. Yep, but
The two saving graces of this movie
yes,
are the Rosalind Chow, who plays her mother, who is over the moon that Jack Quaid is dating her. Like, you guys have been friends. Why is it taking so long?
why did it take so long?
You know,
Like straight out yells at him in the kitchen, in his face. It's like, why did it take so long?
and
He's like, she's a nice piece of slice or something like that.
A nice slice over there, and then she says something to the girl about him throwing it in her, and it was really funny to me.
It's not what you would expect a mother.
Yeah, it was very off the wall shit. The other part is Ed Begley Jr. plays Jack Quaid's father, who is getting married for the third time, I believe.
To a woman who's like 20 years younger or something.
I think the lady is like just a little bit older than Jack Quaid, has two sons that are probably like 7 and 8.
Yep.
Something along those lines.
When he walks into their house, they scream stranger danger,
Yep,
and try to shoot him with
airsoft guns or Nerf guns
or
or
something like that. Yep. And they're like, no, he's a stranger danger. The entire time that this lady's pulling these children away, and they're I don't even know if they're 8. They seem like they're 12 or something. Like,
I thought they looked younger. I don't know.
They're old enough to know better,
right?
And they were just little douchebags.
Well, I think what that also does is give the dynamic, because she even mentions, she's like, oh, we had a little sleepover last night, which means that the kids probably haven't been over to that house that much. So it also may be that Jack Quaid doesn't come over enough to really know them.
Well, it's just something else. I think that was very excellent. I guess the way to show that their relationship for his father, he really doesn't care for his father.
Yeah.
He kind of almost despises his father because of the relationship with his mom, I think, is really
their divorce ended up really screwing Jack Quaid up. Jack Quaid ostensibly blames his father for the way he is with women.
Yeah.
Which is, again, Jack Quaid's kind of a bitch in this movie. That's just one of his many bitch moves.
He romanticizes love way like it's a teen flick.
But I will say there's a scene, because Ed Begley Jr., who plays Jack Quaid's father, asked him to be his best man. Jack Quaid, obviously, because he's a bitch, like, won't commit to it, kind of says, like, no, I don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. or won't give an answer. Like he keeps running away from the conversation. But it gets a call from Ed Begley Jr. at some point, needing him and his friends to be picked up at the golf course at like midnight or something like that. Shows up, and Ed Begley Jr. I keep saying his name, but his father comes running out with his friends behind. He's like, oh, we just did a bunch of acid, and then we broke into the golf course. And Jack Quaid goes, why would you do any of that?
Yep.
And so they all get in the car, and then Jack drops off his friends. His father stays in the car, climbs in the back seat, and then proceeds to kind of lay down, but starts talking to Jack. It's like, do you hate, I think Gina is her name, the girl he's marrying.
The soon-to-be stepmother.
Yeah, and he's just like, they have this conversation where he's like, your divorce, the way you divorced mom, the way things went down with mom and everything, like, you made it hard to root for you. Which was, I thought, an actual, like, good line. Like, the whole conversation is really well done, and he's like, it's, caused me to kind of romanticize these things, and, like, now I'm alone because of whatever.
Yeah.
And
he pretty much blames his father
for
giving him this wrong impression of what it would be like to be married.
Well, and he even says, like, I didn't want to be like you, so I had like this like weird high expectation and shit like that. And then and now I'm alone, and I think his father has the best ending of the conversation. He's like, as long as I'm alive, you'll never be alone.
Yeah.
And then he's like, can we go to Quick Burger or something like that?
Yeah.
He's like, sure. And he's like, so the father lays down, then pops back. He's like, take the freeway, don't take the street, and then lays back down. And that's the end of the scene. Those two conversations are the saving graces of this movie.
Yep. Agreed.
Otherwise, it's a really non-starter for me. Like it's full of all the tropes of every other romantic comedy movie,
without the nice meat and potatoes that you can get from most of every other.
Yeah, there's like all these they go to all these weddings where like they meet friends that you don't have to actually like gain any understanding of or like attachment to, who just fucking talk about Jack Quaid or the girl, and like so it's all exposition almost. Mm-hmm. But there's all these characters that come through that mean nothing. Yeah.
First of all, who does that? Like 30, 40 weddings, I swear, that they were going to. Like, who
no
goes
one has that many fucking weddings in a...
Nobody has that kind of time.
Especially when it's... You can't be invited to that many weddings because there's going to be too much overlap. Like, that does not work.
I swear that they were going to the weddings of, like, third cousins twice removed from a best friend back in high school that died.
They're comparing in the beginning of the movie, like, oh, I've got 7 more to do this summer. What the fuck are you talking about? There's 3 months of summer. How do you have 7 weddings?
That's too much.
It's impossible.
It's too much.
Especially that no one has enough money to fucking travel like that.
That's the other, and he doesn't. I think he got fired or quit his job or something.
Well, no, he kept talking about not wanting to work at the job he had. He was a VP of like a startup company. Yeah. He keeps talking about he's talking to his dad golfing about wanting to change it. Yeah, change jobs.
He just doesn't like it anymore.
Yeah. Once again, being a bitch. Like
pretty much, you realize that this guy just romanticizes about life way too much.
He's a pussy about everything.
At least the girl had some balls to do what she wanted to do, but even then, like I said, it was almost over the top on her end.
Right, and like she got over that guy that was I have no idea what the fuck happened with that relationship, but like the guy that left her like right before the beginning of the movie, and like she got over that guy pretty fucking quick considering how broken up she was originally. Right. Like, because in the first wedding they go to together, they hang out, and she's just fucking crying at one point. And she went from that to like a month or a month and a half later being like in love with Jack Quaid. Yep. Like, it's ridiculous.
Also, his speeches, although he has a very approachable and appealing
demeanor
when he talks, I thought his speeches were just
weren't that cool.
They weren't that good at all. And they were like praising him like he's a goddamn speech king.
Yeah. So I don't know, that fucking movie was just bullshit.
I didn't like it. Watched it through. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing I've seen by far. It's just
I probably laughed more than I expected to, because Tim watched it before I did, and kind of gave me his opinion. And I was like, shit, maybe I don't want to watch this, but I watched it anyway. I laughed Like, but at the same time, like, I don't feel compelled to fucking watch it again.
No.
Like, I think some of these people should be punished for making this movie.
It held no standard. It held no relevance in my.
As I said, the parents of these two characters are the only saving graces of this movie.
Yeah. And like I said, it wasn't like it was a horrible film or anything. It was just one of those films that it was just, it didn't have any essence to it.
Yeah, it took all the stuff from a romantic comedy and condensed it to the point where it was boring.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the worst thing about it is you can predict every second of that film.
Yeah.
And
just because there's nothing to it.
There's nothing to it.
Like I say, there's no real story.
No.
Like, it's them going to a bunch of weddings. Like I say, you have no characters you have to engage with other than the two fucking characters that are the main characters.
It was like I was literally watching a friend of mine bitch about his problems.
Right.
That's kind of how I felt.
I will say the other nice thing was when Jack Quaid gets drunk at that one wedding after he and whatever face break up. His friend is like
that guy when he's
when he's being that guy, and his friend sits him down away from him. He's like, "Dude, you're not that great."
Yeah,
like
yep.
He's like, "I love you, but you're terrible."
Yeah,
like
you're a piece of shit.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's the kind of friend that needed to be at the beginning of this movie and be like, "Stop being an asshole, shut up."
Yeah,
and this whole movie didn't have to fucking start, or it could have been a short film.
Yep.
15 minutes. That's all we needed.
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
At least 2 or 3 people looking at Jack Quaid to stop being a bitch.
Yep, I agree. I give it, honestly, I'll give it a 3. And that's being
gracious.
Pretty gracious, because I'm not discrediting the film as what I took it for. It was just nothing special at all.
I will say this. I think the acting itself seemed fine.
Yeah.
But it was the fact of the matter, the movie was written shitty. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd probably give it like a 2 or a 3.
The film itself wasn't bad. The acting was decent. Yeah, it was just essentially it was just the plot. It was a story. It was
the writing of the movie was
a lame story.
Yeah. So like I say,
because you didn't even care about these characters. That's exactly what you need in a film. You need to care about what's going on.
Yeah.
You didn't give a shit about what was going on at all. You were more annoyed, like, once again, why are you going to another fucking wedding if you hate it so much? Don't go.
Say no.
Right?
Yeah. It's not like you're a best man at all these weddings.
Right? And that's just where it was like...
Well, and it's like, I swear to Christ, when he tries to break up with her and she flies off the handle and leaves, I was like, that's exactly what you fucking deserve.
Yeah.
And everything after that was me going, yep, you had that coming. You had that coming.
I said the same thing. Like I said, that was the point where I'm like, oh, this chick ain't too bad.
Yeah. This movie should have been this movie could have just been Jack Quaid gets what he fucking deserves, because everybody tells him he's a piece of shit and he had the best thing going and he shat all over it.
Yeah, it could have been 15 minutes.
Yeah, it just
and
Jack Quaid's friends just beating the shit out of him until he figures out what the fuck is wrong with his life.
And then when they go back, when they go to that last wedding, and he brings flowers because she was gonna be there. Of course, where would you not? The time it was like supposed to be like a month or something. I think I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm like, of course she's gonna go back. That was predictable as well. And then he brings flowers, like, oh, it's for this chick. I'm like, once again, it's a trope. It's something that's
right. Well, it's because they made that fucking scene where she's like, oh, flowers. It's like, I never got the point of it. He's like, not about getting a fucking point. It's about getting flowers so someone loves you.
Yep.
And he brought like a thing of flowers, and they're like,
give you something that dies.
Yeah.
Stop being a hipster.
Stupid. Like,
stop being a fucking tree loving hipster.
I will say the thing that made me laugh the most though is after the when they wake up in the cemetery.
Yeah.
And the groundskeeper's like, Cooter's out.
Cooter's out.
I don't know why.
Cooter's out.
That was the funniest part.
It's
like, what are you talking about?
Oh, shit.
And I think she was talking about my vagina.
Like, yes, I got that. Yeah. That I did laugh at that too. Just because the guy's just like, Cooter's out.
Yeah, just Cooter's out. What? Cooter's out.
Yep.
So it had some moments like that where I laughed, but yeah, it was just...
like I said, that's why I give it a 3. My 5-star rating, I give it a 3. I wouldn't give it anything more than a 3. Definitely doesn't go past a 3. But no, I don't think it was quite a 2, because that's pretty low in my standard. And, and 2.5, might as well just round it up to 3.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
So I did watch it, and I didn't necessarily shut it off. So, but yeah, that was +1. Once again, that's on Hulu too.
Yep.
Because
a lot of these movies that I talked about, like I like sat on Hulu for like an hour and a half and just watched trailers.
Yep. Because Aram couldn't commit to anything.
Yeah, I have a lot of that. I have that problem a lot nowadays. Like I like when I get the peace and quiet to actually watch whatever the fuck I want. Like I sit there and I look and I just sit and I go through and I end up watching fucking trailers.
You know what I do when I get to that point where if I can't find anything to watch and I have time to myself and this, first of all, I almost never watch TV when I'm by myself because I got other shit I'm going to do that needs more of my attention when I'm just alone, more of my focus.
Well,
but
not everybody has like 9 million hobbies.
Hey, maybe they should. Maybe people wouldn't be so miserable.
I use the George Carlin bit. Like I have interests. Hobbies cost money.
Yes, they do. I spend a lot of money on my hobbies.
I know.
I have expensive hobbies too.
Yeah, I know.
Between music, which is fucking expensive, and being a photographer, which is fucking expensive, and painting, which is fucking expensive.
Yep.
Fuck, what else do I do?
What?
Leatherworking.
Yeah.
That's actually not that expensive. Unless
you just make it expensive by buying shit that like.
Well, I pretty much have every tool that I need, and I spend about $300 on buying all the tools that I need. And then at this point, it's just buying nice leather and bulk, and that kind of gets expensive.
Tim was showing me his lenses for his camera, and he was like telling me, "Oh, this one costs like $200. This was like $300." And then he said something like, "This one was like $1,500." And I think I had a mini heart attack. Like I had to grab it. Like, "Oh, what?
Yeah,
$1,500 for a lens?
Yeah,
it's plastic and glass."
Kind of. It's got a little computer in there
to
too.
the layman, like it's plastic and glass. $1,500. No.
Well, that's not the most expensive lens I could get either. Like,
well, I'm sure it's not. In my mind, after the fact, I went, Tim went cheap on that one.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the next lens I want to get would be a telephoto lens that is about $8,000.
Jesus Christ.
But then again, if I was to get that, I won't get that until I start making money somewhere.
I would hope.
But that's like what National Geographic photographers use because they're compressing the image.
Yeah.
So you can zoom in really, really far, and it compresses it to a nice, clean, crystal image. That's why those lenses are so expensive because they're a lot to build.
Sure. Well, I can imagine if they got to do all that bullshit.
Yep. Especially making it fairly compact. Well, then I spent like $500 on my camera bag.
On a bag.
Well, kind of.
Bag.
It was $500. I got a good deal with it because at the time it was coming out, I was on a Kickstarter plan, so I was able to get it for like $200. But it's a Peter McKinnon.
I just bought a computer bag for my new laptop, and I looked at a $50 bag and went, nah, and I went with the $40 bag.
Well, first of all, let me explain my money spending concept. I am getting tired. For most of my life, I've never been able to afford anything that I've wanted.
Don't get me wrong. I'm buying shit I don't need now, too.
It hasn't been until, I would say, the past 3 years, and it really hasn't been until this past 2 years that I've actually been able to buy and accumulate some of these things that I've been wanting for my entire life.
Right. I'm just giving you a little shit. Like I don't like get down on you spending money. Like you made it. Fucking right? If you got your bills paid, fucking spend it.
And that's just it. My bills are still covered. I still have a little bit of money in the bank. I'm not breaking the bank on any means. I mean, I'm not saying I haven't come really close, but bills are still being paid. I mean, I'm not broke.
Right.
So,
I mean, it comes from me living paycheck to paycheck for fucking ever, and I just. My heart just kind of like seizes up anytime I know someone's like paying like a super like large amount of money over stuff that like isn't a car or like some kind of repair that needs to be done. Like
I spent $1,300 on all this podcast stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So like, at least we're getting good use out of it.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. That's where I say like I just like anytime we're like, oh yeah, I spent $1,500 on this. I'm like, fuck.
Well,
what?
And then you want to go into D&D.
Yeah.
I've probably spent about $300 on D&D stuff, and that's just for the 5th edition. That's just upgrading. I still have all my other books, but
I fucking like I got wound up because I was like, I spent $30 on dice, and I was like, I spent $30. And like, and then like there's like that small part of my brain was like, remember when $30 didn't fucking mean anything?
Right.
Like, I spent $30. It's fine. Like when I was, in my 20s and didn't have responsibility.
See, and I've never been. Now I feel that way. Oh, it's just $30. Fuck. I wiped my ass with $30.
I don't know where. Like, I guess part of me, I think, is just from having a child. Like, it just like warped like what I had.
For me, it's priorities.
Yeah.
My priorities have changed drastically, and so like the things that I'm spending money on are this area, but the money I used to spend, also like a lot of the debt that I used to have, or
Sure.
Plus, I wasn't making remotely the amount of money I should have been making.
True.
So now I'm actually making money because I'm worth it.
Right.
Back then, I was making money because I had no choice. They pay me this, and I had to take it.
Homeboy needed to eat.
Yep. And so, but yeah, no, that's just growing up.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to
back to the movies.
yeah. So once again, the first film we talked about was Changeland. The second one was Plus One, and I would say The Art of Self-Defense is probably the third one that we've watched. Well, me and you have definitely watched.
Both you and I have
recently
both
just watched
recently
it too.
seen it.
Oh my god, it's fantastic.
It was wonderful.
It's Jesse Eisenberg, and I have no idea what
Imogen Poots is her name. Yeah. That's the only other name. I don't think anyone else out of that movie was really recognizable.
Yeah, because I don't even know who the karate instructor guy
Sensei,
was.
like,
he like
seemed
looked
vaguely
familiar.
familiar.
Yeah, but I
yeah.
have no idea who he was. Nobody else in that film
Yeah.
was remotely
which is
special.
fine because no one else mattered.
Nope.
Like,
Nope. Which is funny because both of them, Jesse Eisenberg and that other girl, were in that Vivarium film.
oh sure,
They were the stars in that, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
Imogen Poots.
yeah, whatever. It's a weird name. Weird name. Great film though. It was a dark comedy.
Yeah, very dark.
Very dark.
So Hulu describes it as taking the concept of toxic masculinity to the extreme, and boy, were they right.
Yeah.
So essentially, the movie starts out in a cafe. Two what looked like backpackers.
Yep. Two French tourists.
Well, the one was speaking English. I don't even know if they were French tourists. The one guy was French.
Well,
the other girl was speaking
multiple languages over there.
Well, she was speaking very clear English, like with no accent.
They were both French.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
if she didn't, they were both speaking French.
They were both speaking French for sure.
That's all that matters.
It really is a non-point to fucking what they were. But
they
anyway,
walked
two
in this
backpackers
diner,
walk in. The man
they're like, "Oh, this is all shit."
The man is immediately complaining in French.
Yep.
She orders 2 coffees, to which he complains that he's ordering coffee from a counter and that he has to get it out of like one of those.
Well, first he asked 2 espressos, and she's like, "Oh, we just have regular coffee." And he's like, "The fuck?"
Right. That's right. I forgot about that.
And then he gets irritated.
Yeah.
He's like, "What the fuck is this shit?"
Yeah, he's gonna get him out of the air
thermos or
thermos or
work the
whatever.
coffee pot
So he just starts like finger banging it to get the coffee out.
until he figures it out.
So they sit down, and then you see kind of kitty corner from them is Jesse Eisenberg, kind of with his hands in his pockets for some strange reason, just like staring blankly at a newspaper.
He's rocking back and forth slightly.
Yeah, rocking a little bit.
He comes off as if he has some kind of autism or some kind of
for sure,
something on that kind of spectrum. He definitely comes like he's a little
there's
off.
something there's something not quite right right off the bat for him. But so they start
playing a game.
They start playing a game, and they start talking about Jesse Eisenberg in French because they assume he can't understand.
Pretty much trying to narrate like what it is that he's thinking and what he's doing, and
talking about like his erections and stuff like that. Just basically like shaming him,
the
calling
wanting ads and getting a hard erection
and then so they they assume he can't understand it, but then you see Jesse Eisenberg in his car listening to French on tape.
The 25th volume 25th. And
so
so he's definitely pretty good at French.
Yeah,
he understood
even says
everything.
you should have a working understanding of the French language at this point.
And I thought right away, I was like, okay, interesting. And as soon as it cut to him in the car, it's like, oh, you just finished up the 25th volume of French language. So I'm like, that is great.
Yep.
That was good. I didn't see that one coming.
That he just fucking took it. And
and which says why there's something up to.
Yeah, there's that's the recurring theme
flinch.
for. Yeah.
He didn't flinch at all.
Didn't make a reaction,
Nope.
just kept staring at the newspaper. That's the recurring theme for Jesse Eisenberg for the next 20-ish minutes, I think.
Yeah.
So cut to him going to work. And I believe there's three guys that sit down at a table in the break room talking about their boss, Glenn, or something like that. Just trash talking him, talking about, oh, we should set his house on fire and stuff like that. And Jesse Eisenberg, who's standing off to the side quietly, kind of like listening to the conversation, all of a sudden butts in. And it's like, oh, I don't like when Glenn gives me these jobs either. And I mean, it makes me like, do the accounts. He's like, but he has a wife, and maybe burning his house down isn't a good idea.
Yeah, he just had a baby child. And in fact, I know he had a baby child because I was over there for the barbecue that past weekend.
That's right.
And his wife is actually really cool, and he's actually not that bad of a guy.
And one of the guys goes, "What department are you in?" And like,
accounting.
Accounting. He's like, "So you do our accounts?" He's like, "Or you do our expenses?" He's like, "Yeah." And the last guy goes, "Get the fuck out of here!" Yeah. And so he leaves.
Yep. Without saying a word, he just turns around.
Yep. And then he's working late that night. Oh, I'm sorry, I forget that one of the guys had a magazine that was just the male symbol, like the circle with the fucking arrow coming out of the top of it.
It was kind of the leader of the break room trio. Is the guy who told him to get the fuck out of there. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's working late, he's copying some stuff down, and then he looks up and he sees that guy's desk and sees the magazine that they wouldn't let him see
First
at the
of all,
table.
he's the only one late at night in this office, too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not even a cleaning lady.
No, he's just doing his job, and that just shows you how pathetic his life is.
Yeah. So he goes and he picks up the magazine, he looks through, and he sees various images, like there's guns and hunting, and like I think there's one article that says like a wolf, like a pet for a man.
Yep. Does a wolf make a good pet or something like that?
Yeah. And then like he comes across one page that has like 5 different pictures of like a set of breasts on it.
Different breasts. Yeah.
Yeah. It was it was the most nonsensical magazine.
Yep.
But he like decides to go and copy it. Doesn't take the magazine, just copies it.
The whole thing. And then places the magazine back on the guy's desk and even like puts it in the proper position so it doesn't look like it's been moved. Nope.
And then takes home the copy and like has it stapled together so he can look through it like it's an actual magazine.
Yep.
Where you meet his dog. I don't remember if you ever
Dotson.
I don't remember if you ever get a name of the dog, but
yeah, I don't remember.
But yeah, so he's got his dachshund. He is looking at the magazine, and then his dog kind of makes a motion like it's hungry, to which Jesse Eisenberg discovers an empty dog food bag in his cupboard and then looks at the dog and says, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were out."
How do you, first of all...
How do you not realize you put the fucking bag back in?
Yeah.
Secondly...
Any animal person would go, that is not okay.
Right.
You should not have an animal.
And secondly, like, this is the point where you get the idea that there's something wrong with Jesse Eisenberg and that you understand how much of a pushover he is. He's apologizing to a dachshund.
Yeah.
That is just blankly looking at him. Is not really doing anything else. It's just staring at him.
Yeah.
So he's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were out." And so Jesse Eisenberg leaves to go get more food on foot. He has a fucking car.
Yeah,
but he leaves
I said
on
the
foot.
same thing. I'm like, it's probably like 6 blocks that he's walking, but he decides to walk all of a sudden.
Yeah. And so
apparently doesn't want to spend the gas.
Just fucking whatever.
Not to mention, previously there's like it was the news or maybe it was a radio or something like that. They were talking about there's a motorcycle gang that had been mugging people.
That's after.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's in the hospital room. You hear the radio over the.
Oh, okay. Well,
anyway,
And to give you an idea of how bleak his life is, his dog food bag is literally a big giant paper bag that says dog food on it.
Yeah,
that's all.
It is beyond generic.
The bleakest thing out there just said dog food, nothing else on it.
We used to get assistants when I was a kid, so like I had seen like the shit that is just like a white packaging just says the fucking product.
Yep.
This is even white packaging. It's brown paper bag.
Giant brown
just
paper
says
bag.
and like stenciled on letters says dog food.
Yep. Big black letters.
Yeah. And so he's walking to the convenience store. Again, has a fucking car. This is probably the one point where you're like, this is simply just to further the plot.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only way they could make it work. But I won't. I love the movie, so I'm not gonna really bitch about it.
Yeah, no, it had his point.
But anyway, so two people on a motorcycle drive by, and one guy goes, "Do you have a gun?" And Jesse Eisenberg's like,
What?
"No," like, because when someone just drives up to you and says, "Do you have a gun?" your first reaction shouldn't be no. It should be, "Get the fuck away from me. Right. You probably have a gun."
Well, then they drive off.
Yeah,
he goes, gets the dog food, and it comes back, and he hears the motorcycle coming up again, and then he starts to run.
Yeah, he starts to run, and he drops the dog food, and he's running, and one person gets off the bike and runs after him and trips him, and then starts kicking him and like beating him.
Yep.
And eventually just kicks him in the face a couple times.
Yep.
So the next thing you see is Jesse Eisenberg in a hospital room. And that's when the radio bit that Tim was talking about is like, oh yeah, there's a motorcycle gang that just left somebody in critical condition. He has no equipment hooked up to him.
No.
In this hospital.
Just
he is not in critical condition.
Thing, that was it. Just that little heart monitor.
Not critical condition. Secondly, I want to point this out. In that hospital room, his fucking dog is there.
Yep. With a blanket from at home that the dog was laying on.
Exactly. And there's a child in that room.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's a doggy.
Yeah.
Yep.
What fucking hospital is this? I'm sorry,
But
I don't mean to scream.
But the radio station people, whatever, the announcers start saying, it's like, oh, there's this motorcycle gang that left another one critical. It's like, yeah, so maybe walk out at night, or if you do, carry a gun or a large knife.
Yeah.
And then you realize that he's okay. He's alive.
He survives.
Yeah.
And then so he goes home and he's looking at the magazine again, but he's having trouble like going out. Like he's got PTSD.
Yep. And he still didn't have the dog food.
I want to know, how long was he in the hospital and how was his dog getting fed? Because he has ostensibly no friends.
No.
Like, his boss seems to be the only person that gives a shit about him.
In fact, his boss called him and said, hey, buddy, I hope you're okay. Just want to check in. It's like, take as much time as you want off. It was like you get 2 weeks or whatever, and then you have vacation racked up. That shouldn't be a problem. So he took like 3 months off.
Yeah,
right?
He calls him. He's like, oh, it's been a couple months.
Yeah,
later down the road.
I need you to come back to work.
But yeah, so like he realizes he's out of food again, and he's just like,
I can't do it.
He's like, I can't go out. And so he basically gives him he gives the dog half of whatever he's eating for dinner.
Kind of noodles of some sort.
Yeah, it was like it looked like spaghetti and like chicken or something like that. Yeah. Nothing a dog should be eating.
No.
But so he's watching a movie where like, and it's like a gangster movie because like one guy gets shot and he's watching that and he's looking down at the magazine that he printed out and like he's looking at the page with all these guns on it and he decides he needs a gun.
Yep.
That's how he's going to protect himself. So he goes to this place and he's like, I need a gun. And he's like, what kind of gun? He's like, I need something small, something that will fit in the hand. And the guy's like, you probably want a handgun. He's like, yes. And so he shows him like, I think it's a Beretta, I think is the...
It looked like something,
I think it's a Beretta on it or something like
that. And so he picks it up. He's like, yes, this is perfect. It fits in my hand very easily.
Yeah. And so he goes through all that and he's like... At the end, he's like filling out the paperwork. He's like, "Can you like put this in a box or wrap this?" And he's like, "Oh, there's like a waiting period. Like you can't have it now."
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Does he just go walking around after that?
He's just like, "Oh, okay," and then he just leaves.
Yeah, and then he ends up at passing by a
karate dojo. And he hears some shouting. He gets a little nervous and skittish. He's like, "What?" And then he sees that there's a karate dojo.
And so like he walks in.
It just says karate, by the way. The sign just blatantly says karate.
Yep.
That's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing on the windows. It just says karate.
Just karate.
That is it. And it's like in the warehouse district. Like,
the place
it looks like abandoned docks or something.
That street looked abandoned.
Yeah, it looked like Detroit.
I even thought the building itself, like I thought one of the letters in karate was falling off.
Yeah,
I thought I saw something.
It's just
But yeah, so he goes in and he observes, and this is where you meet the sensei of the dojo, who is
a little eccentric at first.
It seems just a touch off, but it seems like in a
not a bad way. Just
he's talking about teaching students how to talk with their fist or something like that.
With their body or whatever. And he's like, I'm gonna teach you how to punch with your feet. And,
no, that's the next lesson. The first one was when he's like you can communicate using karate. He's like, ask me a question, like, what are you gonna do this weekend? He's like, and he starts doing all these moves, but like saying things at the same time. Like, so he's like throwing punches. He's like, I want a movie, maybe a comedy, and things of that nature. And so Jesse Eisenberg is like obviously enamored of the whole thing. Talks to the sensei, and sensei says, well, the first lesson's free, so why don't you come back tomorrow and, whatever. He says, I think I can make that, or something like that. And so he comes back the next day, is like observing Imogen Poots teaching a child class. Imogen Poots teaches teaching like 6 children a chokehold that she applies to a child and knocks him out.
Yep.
Like chokes him out till he's asleep, and then just like rubs a spot and wakes him back up.
Well, she goes, it's like, what's rule number 8? It's like, you either tap out or you nap out.
Yeah, tap or nap. That's what it was. But so yeah, she gets the rest of the kids, and then when she wakes the other kid back up, he's like, oh, tap or nap.
Yep.
But it's funny because she's teaching him like the position, and she just wraps her arms around and chokes out a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Nobody does anything. Parents are even in the back on the bench just watching it.
Like, this is how this is supposed to happen.
It's like they're not even real people. It's
right.
Like they're just cutouts that are sitting there.
And so Jesse Eisenberg comes up after the lesson and tries to talk to her.
She says like, "Oh, you're a fantastic teacher," but
and she's
makes
like,
one huge mistake.
Yeah, so she's like, "What's rule whatever?" Like, no. She's like, he said something to the effect that he's here for the free class, and she's like, "So you're a no white belt?" He's like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Well, our sensei would be so upset if he saw you like breaking rule number 8." And like Jesse Eisenberg looks at a board on the fucking wall as a list of rules, and number 8 is no shoes on the mat. And then you look down, he's wearing his tennis shoes on the mat. Mm-hmm. And Imogen Poots just goes, "Take your shoes off, white belt." And
well, I think she says, "Take your fucking shoes off."
Yeah, some of that.
But the point is, he wasn't supposed to have his shoes on.
Right. So he's taking them off, and then he like observes the color of her belt and like the tape around it, which will come back to play later.
Yep.
But he gets up, and like through the conversation, she's like, "Are you trying to tell me you need a gi and a belt?" Like he's like, "Yes." There's one funny line where he's like, she's like, "Are you new white belt?" He's like, "Whatever the color for a beginner is, or if that's the color of the first belt." She's like, "White is before color. You haven't earned a color yet."
Yeah.
And
he's like, "Oh, that actually makes sense."
That makes sense. He says that a lot to the things that are explained to him. He's like, "That makes sense."
Yep.
It's almost Van Wilder-ish the way he says that.
Yep.
But yeah, so he is given a gi and a belt, and proceeds to have his first class, which is where the sensei says, "Today I'm going to teach you how to kick with your your fists and punch with your feet," which is also going to come back to play later. Just remember that. So Jesse Eisenberg is teamed up with a purple belt guy whose name I forget.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But the guy kind of gets carried away and kicks him right in the chest and knocks him over. The sensei just goes, "Not in the day class." And he's like, "Sorry, I forgot where I was." And they proceed to have a little roundabout with Jesse Eisenberg and the other guy who was like, he's trying to learn how to kick or punch with his feet.
Yep.
And the first time he's like, "Oh, that was a good first try, but that felt like a kick." And he's like, "That felt like a kick to me."
Yeah.
And he's like, and the second time he tries it again, he's like, "That felt like a punch, a very weak punch, but a punch." He's like, "Yeah, it felt good to me too." And so this is the intro to the whole thing, and Jesse Eisenberg decides that he is going to take karate.
Yep.
So
goes into the office.
Yep.
The
sits
sensei's
down.
office and
Yeah, sits down and talks to the sensei and is like, they go through the questionnaire of like, why are you
doing this?
Why are you doing this? Is it for it's
Why are you
multiple
taking-
multiple choice? He tries
Well,
to give
first
him
he asks, how old are you? Or when's your birthday? He's like, oh, this is can you say that in months? The system only takes months.
I think he's
like,
like, I turned 36 in a month. He's like, can you do that in months? The system only takes months. Yeah. So he has to like do the conversion.
Then he does it on.
That's right. Yeah, he does it on a calculator.
Like a paper one though.
Yeah, like an accounting calculator.
Yeah, like a roll of paper.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it was 200 and something months.
Yeah. But yeah, so Jesse Eisenberg kind of just starts taking classes. The question at the end of that whole interview is like, why are you doing this? He starts trying to give an explanation. He's like, well, it's multiple choice. Hold on a second. Yeah. And he reads off. He's like, health and fitness.
New Year's resolution.
There's one other one, or the last one is self-defense / personal trauma.
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg says health and fitness.
Yep.
And then proceeds to take the classes and moves quickly into a yellow belt.
Yeah. Yeah, he moves up pretty. He gets into it. Starts practicing at home and even at work.
Yeah. So there, he's presented with a yellow belt. Another guy is presented with a black belt over Imogen Poots, who she's the only other teacher in the class or in the dojo. So like Jesse Eisenberg's kind of confused by that, but like he kind of takes it.
Yep.
And then I'm trying to remember, I feel like I'm missing something.
Well, so I mean, you can kind of skip a little bit because at that point it's kind of fill in, but he moves up in the ranks. The black belt thing, I think, comes pretty much right after you were talking about that stuff. But he ends up.
There's another student in the class that's like reveals about the night class. Like they're talking about these like little stripes on the certain belts, and like, oh, what do the black stripes mean? Oh, those are guys that attend the night class. He's like, I'm supposed to get my black stripe tonight. And he doesn't get it, which apparently he's pretty upset about.
So Sensei pretty much upgrades 3 people.
Yep.
And that's Jesse, that's the
Asian guy that gets the black belt.
And then the guy, the purple guy.
Yeah,
purple
gets a
belt
brown
guy
belt.
Gets a brown belt. But he does the first 2, and then that guy that you're just talking about interrupts him. Is like, oh, Sensei. He's like, didn't you forget something?
That's right, because he was like, he
forget something.
He heard like people talking. He was like that he was supposed to get his black stripe.
Yep.
And he doesn't get it, and so he interrupts. He's like, excuse me, aren't you forgetting something? He's like, you're right. I was gonna do this like as a surprise or something.
Yeah, I was gonna make it dramatic or whatever.
Yeah, and he pulls out the black belt and gives it to the other guy, and so yeah, that guy is kind of upset. And then I believe the next part, through this, like, after he gets the yellow belt, Jesse Eisenberg, like, wants to wear it everywhere.
Yep.
And so, like,
But he thinks it would look weird.
Yeah.
So what does he do?
Look weird. Yeah, eventually he gets belts made, like, actual, like, leather belts. In all the colors.
Different colors.
So he gives a black leather belt to the sensei, which in my mind, I was like, you got fucking ripped off on that one. Right. But that's brown and black, like you could fucking find at Walmart.
Well, and that was after he goes to the store and buys all yellow stuff, yellow food and condiments and everything yellow that he could find.
He starts to get this obsession with yellow because of the yellow belt. Like
it makes him feel.
You see him wearing it in the mirror, like he's wearing it like he's gonna wear it to work, but then takes it off. But yeah, he goes to the grocery store and like everything that he buys is yellow. Even the cashier's like, this stuff's all yellow. He's like, paper, please.
Yeah. And then he goes out to his car, goes to the trunk, and this dude is with a big old truck and loud metal music comes up next to him and just throws open his door and hits Jesse Eisenberg's car.
Yeah.
And he's like, confronts us like, hey, did you just hit my car? Did you just ding my car? It's like, did I?
Yeah. This whole thing kind of erupts and like basically he backs Jesse Eisenberg down.
Yep.
And then like knocks the groceries out of his hand. Jesse Eisenberg at one point was just like, I know karate. And like said it about that loud.
And he's like, what belt are you?
Yeah, he's
like yellow belt.
And he's like walks
Your
up.
Your hands are full. It's like, you're telling me that, you could hit me before I hit you with a handful of groceries? I don't think so.
And he like knocks the groceries out of his hand after the fact. Like I say, Jesse Eisenberg backs down, kind of like the timid guy he is. backs down, and then he gets the groceries knocked out of his hand, and then he's in his car crying,
Yep.
like inconsolably, just weeping almost. And then so he cut to the dojo again, and they're breaking boards, and they're breaking boards in the color of their belt.
Yep.
And Jesse Eisenberg, for some reason, and
Everybody's succeeding.
Everybody's succeeding. I'm going to point this
him.
out. If you look at the boards, I'm pretty sure they're balsa wood.
They look like it. They look very,
There's
very
no
cheap.
way that they're actual boards.
Right.
But
I could break that board.
Jesse Eisenberg is failing at breaking his yellow board, and someone goes, "Well, here, try a white one."
Or he's like, "Are you sure this is a yellow board?" And he's like, "Oh, let me try." So the other guy breaks it. He's like, "Here, I'll go grab a white one."
Yeah, that's it. And so the sensei's like, what
happened?
What happened?
You
Like,
seemed like you lost your confidence and you weren't committing or whatever. And
Jesse Eisenberg, he's like, "Oh, maybe I was wrong to give you the yellow belt." And Jesse Eisenberg, "Oh, you're right." And he takes off the yellow belt and tries to give it back. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
Like, he's like, "You're supposed to fight for that. Like, you don't just give it up."
Yep.
And that's when, like, the sensei basically takes him under his wing.
Why? Well, he asks him, like, "Why are you here? Tell me the truth. Why are you here?"
Yeah.
And then that's when he says, "It's like, oh, New Year's resolution."
Yeah,
Like, well,
he
you
catches him in
told
the
me,
lie.
you told me it was for fitness. And he's like, "Oh, did I?"
Yeah. So
That's when he tells him the truth. It's like, "Oh, I got mugged and
yeah, and
beaten, and he
so
just didn't want to be intimidated and defenseless anymore."
yeah, he doesn't want to be intimidated anymore. He wants to be what intimidates him.
Yeah.
Is I think what he says.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
He wants to be what intimidates him.
Yeah.
Not anybody else, himself.
Right.
He wants to be afraid of himself.
So the sensei starts telling him stuff like, like things to be more masculine.
Yeah.
And like,
It's like, what kind of music
is it? Adult contemporary? No, metal.
Metal.
These should always be metal. Nothing but metal. And
He's like, "Oh, what kind of dog do you have?"
yeah, he was like, "What kind of dog do you have?" Or he's like, "I have a dog." He's like, "Oh, very masculine. What country?" It said something like, "Oh, it's a German breed."
He's like, "What are you into?" He's like, "Oh, I mean, I like French." It's like, I'm big into France,
That's
but
right.
I've never been to French. I just like French. He's like,
Yeah.
no. The French are historically known for being weak
Yeah,
and surrendering.
That's right.
It's like German or Russia. He's like, you should be supporting Russia. They're tough and brute. Or even Germany. He's like, that's even better.
Like, my dog's German.
Yeah, and that's what he says.
right.
My dog is
It's like,
German. It's
I have a
really?
German Shepherd? Nice.
No, I got a.
It's a dachshund. Like, not quite as masculine, but
He's like,
still German.
oh, it's
I think that's what it was like. It's still German, so it works.
right. So then Jesse, after that whole conversation, his character, and he goes to the store and buys a metal album, which
Yeah.
is like only one metal. It looked like he went to like a Sam Goody or something like that,
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it really looked like he went to to something
or like an Electric Fetus
yeah,
kind
like
of thing.
if
Like
you run
thrift
Minnesota,
store.
you'll probably know what the Electric Fetus is, but. Yeah, it looks like he went to that.
And there's only one album.
There's like 20 adult contemporary right in front of
Yep.
the one metal album, which is not how any place organizes their music.
I thought that was great too. I noticed. I'm like, that's not right.
It was like,
That would never happen.
I was like, how the fuck did that work? But yeah, we digress.
It's like,
We're nitpicking the sorting of the fucking
Right.
store at this point.
And he's at like a stoplight when he decides to put it in.
I thought he was just in the fucking parking lot. I
No,
didn't even think
because
he got
then
that
you
far.
had the people that pulled up
Yeah.
next to him and they just drive off.
Yeah, they're
They
like
roll up
looking
their
at him and
window.
they roll their windows. It's like a family and they're like looking at him
fuck
very
is that?
strangely.
Yep.
Because he basically gets, it sounded like Swedish black metal
Oh
at that
god,
point.
yeah, you couldn't understand anything.
It was
just a
low
bunch of
growls or screeches and very just heavy drums. It was, yeah. And so he starts doing stuff like that, and he's slowly going a little further more into his obsession with karate.
He ends
You
up
get
going.
He gets the call about the fact that it's been about
He
3
has to go
months.
back to
Yeah,
work,
he has to
yep.
go back to work.
And then, so he goes back to work and he starts learning German. So he
Well, the
gets
first time he goes back to work, he's just like sitting, like,
he's
doing the
practicing his thing
practicing
underneath,
under his desk, watching the clock.
waiting to
The
go to
second the clock
practice.
hits the hour, he gets up and leaves.
And he goes to.
And that's around there is when he gets invited to the night class. I can't remember really what goes on, but he gets invited to the night class somehow.
Yeah.
And then the guy that got passed over was like, "I thought you and I were friends."
Yeah, the guy who interrupted Sensei about
Yeah.
the black belt.
He had been the guy that had really befriended Jesse Eisenberg before
He was
that.
weird.
He was a little weird.
He was kind of like he had no friends.
I got the impression that he had a crush on Jesse Eisenberg. He just came off kind of odd. Not that being gay was odd, but it was just like, you'd have to watch the movie to understand why we felt he came off odd.
I just felt like he was that kind of a strange guy who didn't have any friends.
He definitely
kind of forced himself into a situation.
He was older than everybody else at sea.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
But anyway, so Jesse Eisenberg gets invited to the night class. And so the first night class that he goes to, you figure out that night class is basically Fight Club.
Yeah.
But and this is the part that got kind of buck wild for me, was the guy that got passed over showed up and stood right next to Jesse and was like, just like, what are you doing here? You didn't get invited. And he's like,
I thought you were my friend.
I thought we were friends. By the way, Jesse Eisenberg is the only yellow belt.
Yep.
And Sensei even makes a big thing. He's like, oh, a yellow belt being invited to night class. This is unheard of. This is something this motherfucker invented.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, so the guy shows up and Sensei starts giving a speech or giving a talk. I don't remember the basis of the talk itself, but invites the guy up here and he's like, you have to...
He was pretty much saying certain parts of the body are weak and they're not supposed to go a certain way. And he's talking about the elbows. Like, if the elbow was able to go, one other way, it would be strong. But since it can't, it can be,
be exploited.
It could be weakened.
Yeah.
And so he's like...
Invites the guy up there and basically just snaps the arm backwards.
Just fucking busts his elbow and...
Yep.
And
he says something like... about like, oh, you took something from me and so now I took your arm or your elbow. And he's like, don't ever come back to the night class. Yep. And you don't see that guy...
He says don't ever come back here.
Don't ever come back.
In general. Kicks him out.
You don't see that guy again for a while. You will see him again. And that part is pretty buck wild.
Yep.
But at this point, Jesse Eisenberg knows what's going on.
This is where they kind of get into like a montage thing where they just kind of do a fight club, like you said.
And then Imogen Poots essentially beats up the guy that passed her over for black belt. And
show her dominance.
Yep. And then so...
She deserved it, not him.
Right. And Sensei says, well, you're done for the night. And
very casually, you're done for the night.
Yeah. Doesn't really even give a look at the guy on the floor. He's like, you're done for the night.
And she says, so is he.
Yeah.
And walked away. And this dude's just laying there, nose busted up and bleeding on the mat.
His face is fucked.
Yep.
Because she probably hit him a good, I think with the montage.
After he was down and he tried to tap out, she didn't release when he was tapping. And then he passed out and she just wailed on him.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, after the montage and everything ended, like, when she started punching him, I think she probably got a good solid 6 punches into him, directly to his face without him blocking it.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was passed out.
Like, there was blood all over her sleeve by the time she was done.
So she goes and cools off.
Yep. And then, so, once the night class ends, it's time for a cool-down massage, which
is weird.
Everybody gets into their underwear except for one guy who gets completely naked. And Jesse Eisenberg does not know what's happening at this point. He's very uncomfortable. Hasn't taken his clothes off yet, but is like looking around very like skittish. And then Sensei comes over. He's like, usually it's customary to have like a cool down massage, but like we'll do like this instead. So basically, he takes him into the women's changing room, which is like the janitor's closet, where Imogen Poots is sitting, so that she can give him his cool down massage and he can give her hers. And he's like,
not sexual either.
Not sexual. This is almost, legit. Like,
you think it was gonna lead into like they kind of left that kind of like is this gonna be a sex thing or is like he using her for like prostitution or something? But no, not at all.
He even like, and this is where like you start really getting the glimpses of like the toxic masculinity. Like he says like, I know her hands aren't as strong as a man's and like things like that. So, like, he's like, it's not as good as, like, a real cool-down massage, but this is kind of what we'll do for now. And even Imogen Poots, who's kind of been indoctrinated, like, apologizes for how weak her hands are comparatively to a man's. And Jesse Eisenberg is just, like, I think perplexed at the process at this point. Like,
and that's when he asks her like why she didn't get a black belt.
Yeah.
And...
and this is basically where you start to get the idea. Well, Imogen Poots is the only female in this class. Yep. She is. it's revealed, I think, over the next course, like essentially, we'll get into that in a bit, but essentially the next part is like Jesse Eisenberg has been attending night class for a while. He's listening to German to try and learn German. He's also addressed his dachshund and said, "I'm not going to be petting you anymore. I feel like I've been coddling you. Yep. I care for you deeply, but this is for your own good.
This will make you stronger." Yep.
It won't. Yeah, he says in German, "This will make you stronger." But he's at work at one point listening to German on tape with his headphones in. He's got a screensaver, or his screen on his computer is just a set of breasts for no real reason.
And he's like leaned back with his hands. Got his
just reclining,
work
relaxing.
piled up. His boss comes up and
his boss comes up, gets his attention, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like,
work's piling up. And
he asked him first. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm listening to German." He's like, "Oh, that's cool." He's like, "Hey, your work's piling up. Like some of those reports, I'd like you to really get on top of." And he's like, and he turns around and then he's like, "Hey, so I think his wife's name is Bonnie or whatever, or for whatever the conversation will work. Bonnie and I were wondering if you wanted to come over for dinner or for another barbecue this weekend. The baby, it's nice out. We'll get the pool or something set up." And like Jesse Eisenberg just turns around and stands up and punches his boss in the throat, and says, "No, I would not like to come to the barbecue this weekend. In fact, I will spend the weekend masturbating, imagining your wife in her bikini," or something along those lines.
He pretty much says like, I will not become. It's like bosses can't be friends.
Bosses, you're my boss. You're not supposed to be my friend.
And he's like, I will spend the weekend masturbating about your wife in the swimsuit she had last pool party.
That's it, yeah. And so he goes back to the break room where the three guys are sitting again. Like I think at one point, like before that he gets in there, you hear the guy go, "Should we do push-ups?"
Yeah.
And
it was the alpha guy saying, "Oh, we should do push-ups."
Eisenberg comes in and he's like, "Shut up, stop talking. I do things. I don't talk." Yep. And he's like, "I just punched him in the throat." They're like, "Who?" He's like, "Glenn, our boss." Yep. He's like, "And it was amazing." He's like, and so they're like, "Do you want to join us?" And he's like, and the leader's like, "But there's only 3 chairs."
Yep.
And Jesse has reports that the leader's chair is like, "I'll sit there." And so the other 2 guys look at him like, he's like, "What?" He's like, "Go, I guess. Like, get out of here." And so Jesse Eisenberg sits down and is like, "We should do push-ups."
Oh, he takes his cup of coffee.
Does he?
Yeah.
I missed that part.
Yep. And he drinks his cup of coffee and then he goes, "We should do push-ups."
And then and the end of that scene is the other guys like taking their suit jackets off, like they're going to do push-ups right then.
Yep.
That whole scene was buck wild. And I think that when he goes home from there, he tells his dog he won't be petting him anymore because he's coddling him or something like that.
It was somewhere around there. But this is also where he starts to things start to unravel at the dojo. Like you start to see what really is going on. But he gets a he gets a phone call, or something to meet the sensei at. Well, he gets
the first phone call he gets is about his gun being ready.
Yeah,
there's a paperwork coming through. He's like, "Oh, you can come buy a gun now." Like he's like, "Oh, I don't need one. I found something better." He's like, "Did you buy a knife?"
Yeah.
Because a knife.
Statistically,
a knife will work, but
that,
against a gun,
80% people who buy a knife to a gunfight usually loses.
The gun salesman was probably one of my favorite characters.
I did like his character. He was just throwing
statistics just all over the place. Like, I just love the betrayal in his voice. Like, "Did you buy a knife?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I just don't need it." I was like, "Well, your paperwork's good for 6 more months, so hopefully you don't need a gun in that time." Or something along those lines. But, so here you start to see like the toxic masculinity that the movie talks about, because like the sensei talks about wanting Jesse Eisenberg to like. Wants him to come, or no, this is where Jesse Eisenberg brings the belts. I believe this is the point where he actually brings the belts into the sensei, because Sensei starts talking to him about like doing accounting work. He's like, "Well, I recently lost my job." He's like, "Well, I've got more money coming in like that I can keep up with. Why don't you come do the books for me?" He's like, "I'd love to."
Yep.
And so that's where like and then he starts learning, like he talks about like the mugging and stuff like that. And then that night, he gets a call from Sensei at like probably like 1 a.m, something like that. And
bars are still open.
Yeah, so yeah, it's about 1. Says, oh, what you told me really upset me, and I have some resources, and I tracked down one of the people that attacked you. And Jesse Eisenberg drives up or drives over to the bar, parks in the parking garage where he sees a motorcycle, and then, goes over to where Sensei is standing outside the bar. And he's like, are you sure it's him? He's like, yeah. He was like, what does he look like? He's like, oh, he wears a hat sometimes he doesn't. That's the only description he gives. When the guy comes out and like he's like leaning against the wall, it's like, there he is.
Sure it's him? I was like, yeah, it's him.
He's like, I know my description. Sometimes he's wearing a hat, but this time he's not. And he's like, I don't think we should do this. And like Sensei slaps him in the face. Is like, take your manhood back, or take your masculinity, your dignity back, something like that. So Jesse Eisenberg follows the guy into the parking garage, going towards the motorcycle. Stops him before he hits a bike rack because the guy takes a piss in the parking lot.
Yeah, he's shit-faced too.
Oh yeah, he's shithoused. And then he says, "Hey," and the guy turns around and he's like, "Do you remember me?" He's like, "No." There's more to it. Like I kind of forget what he said.
Then
like
he tries to run away.
Yeah, he tries to run away and he like falls over, and then Jesse Eisenberg like helps him back up, and he's like, "Do you recognize my face?" And the guy's like, "No." And then like Jesse Eisenberg punches him once in the gut, and the guy falls over and cracks his head on the cement.
Bleeding.
Like cracks it, like he's leaving a puddle of blood.
And Sensei standing behind him with a video camera.
Yeah, he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you filming this?" He's like, "I'm filming your growth." He's like, "Don't touch him. He's still breathing." And and then like there's like more to the conversation, but like then Sensei is just like, he's like, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow at 7," and like wanders off.
Yep.
Jesse Eisenberg looks down at the keys the guy was fumbling with because he assumed it was for the motorcycle. Turns out it's for a bike that's locked in a bike rack,
which is right there in frame too. And
yeah. Oh yeah.
So the guy was just trying to get to his bike, which is right there.
It was a clear setup, like what he did. So the next day, he's like, he comes in and like, or no, he comes home to find his dog dead.
Yep.
And he's like, he takes it. The next thing you know, they're at the vet ER, I assume.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, we did as much as we could. He
had severe trauma.
Severe trauma. Yep. And he's like, was it quick? No. Most likely, it was very excruciating. And he's like, did you abuse your dog? He's like, no, he was my best friend. And they start talking. And they're like, how did he die? He's like, well,
I was had to guess. That he got punched.
the impact damage seems like he was punched, but all the actual like physical trauma seems like it was from a foot. And so Eisenberg assumes that Sensei killed his dog. Mm-hmm. Comes in the next day and like interrupts the child class again. And Imogen Poots is like, "What's wrong? You can tell me." This is the first time she's actually seemed nice to him. Because the discussion they had during the massage was very cold and very like mechanical. Mm-hmm. But he like starts like eating and drinking on the mat.
Walks right up on the mat.
Yeah,
and
steps
like,
out.
I'm breaking rule 1. No shoes on the mat. And then he has a baggie of goodies.
Yeah, he starts eating a sandwich. And he just spits onto the mat and like dribbles water.
Rule number 2: no food or drink.
At that point, Sensei comes out and he's like, "Stop this!" Right. And he's like, "Fuck you!"
Yep.
But he does it really quietly because all the parents and the children are there. And he's like, "Kill my dog!" And he like tries to. the little fight scene between him and Sensei right there was actually quite funny because it was Jesse Eisenberg mechanically throwing karate chops at him and Sensei just blocking him and finally just like punching Eisenberg in the face somehow or in the throat or something like that. Knocking him over, and then picking him back up and saying, "I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about your dog." And he's like, "Clean this up," and he walks away.
Yep.
But then, so from there, like, Eisenberg essentially apologizes and says, like, "I've been having trouble controlling my emotions lately." Asks him, like, "Did you kill my dog?" And he's like, "No, I didn't." And then
I think that is where they started talking about like what's her nuts, not
Yeah.
being a black belt, and
Right.
and why is she teaching? Why is she?
He has her teaching the kids because he figured her maternal instincts would kick in and like she'd be a better teacher.
Yep. She'll never reach a black belt status.
She'll never reach a black belt status because her femininity is getting in the way of her being a man.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the most bonkers lines I'd heard, and I was like, but it made sense in the concept of the movie.
Yep. You finally get a sense of this guy is trying to be like the manliest man of that he could possibly be. He even makes fun of Casey is his name, I think.
Yeah,
it's
that's
Casey. Right. Is Jesse Eisenberg's character. He even makes fun of his name, saying, "It's like, God, even Casey, it's quite feminine. It's quite woman sounding."
That comes back to play later too. We forgot to mention that he tells a story about like the Grand Master, who's like just a picture on the wall. That the Grand Master earned this like basically wears a belt of all the colors of all the other belts sewn into like one belt.
That he created himself.
He created it himself. It was bestowed upon him when he got the highest honor by killing the other two Grand Masters, like by using a move that only he knew, which is where like he shoved his finger through their foreheads, right into their brain and killed them. He killed them all in unarmed combat, is what he says. That comes to play at the end of the movie too. I just had to preface that part. But anyway, so that night for night class, they are given like Sensei comes in wearing a jacket and jeans and is like, what size helmet do you wear? He's like, oh, average or regular. Come to find out that the attackers that attacked Jesse Eisenberg were
the whole karate
the night class. So he's like, well, let's go find someone else that we can help. So you're supposed to. Imogen Poots invites herself along. Like they were trying to keep her out of this one because they had another guy to round it out at this point, I guess. But she comes along and
kind of forces herself
to go with Jesse Eisenberg. She's like, oh, you need another runner, is what she says.
Like he's new. He doesn't really know what he's doing. It's like you need another person.
So she and Jesse Eisenberg are on a motorcycle and they're supposed to scope out someone. And like one of the things they're supposed to do is ask if you have a gun, make sure they're unarmed. So they roll up on this guy and like
doesn't ask if he has a gun.
He doesn't ask if he has a gun. Jesse Eisenberg is the one that's supposed to go after him, but like he tenses up. So Imogen Poots just says, well, fine, I'll do it. Walks towards him. Guy pulls a gun, turns out to be a police officer.
Yeah. Says he's a police officer. His gun's like, I'll shoot you, freeze. And
she keeps walking and he shoots and hits her. It's only a graze, but Jesse Eisenberg doesn't understand that. He just sees it happen and attacks the cop.
Beats the shit out of him.
It basically caves his skull in against a fire hydrant.
Yep. I mean, he beats him up and then throws his face into a fire hydrant.
Yeah, he disarms the cop, takes the gun and starts beating him with it. He pistol whips him, and then cracks his skull against a fire hydrant. And at that point, cops are coming, so they're like, "Oh, we gotta go," and they leave. And that's when he earns his red stripe, which means that he's taken a life.
Yep.
And so then you learn that Imogen Poots earned her red stripe after being assaulted by another upperclassman, like another black belt that she'd been passed over by. He was trying to sexually assault her, and then the sensei essentially blamed her for it after the fact.
Well, yeah, he had come up behind her in the locker room. That's when she was sharing the locker room with the guys, but it was after they left, and she fought him and strangled him with his own belt.
Yeah, she said the last thing he saw before his eyes burst was the look of grim satisfaction on my face as he knowing that I was better than him.
Yep.
And then Sensei created the ladies' locker room because he said she had tempted the other guy.
Yep.
So again,
blaming her for her femininity, and yet she is trying to be as masculine as possible. Yeah. So the roles are great, like the gender role kind of concept. Like she's getting criticized for not being a man, and yet she's trying to be a man.
Right.
And
she's acting more manly than the rest of them.
Anybody else. Yep.
So she basically tries to warn Jesse Eisenberg off for whatever reason.
So you shouldn't be here. This is not good. You shouldn't ever come back.
It's not a safe place, is what she refers to it as. But anyway, so I
think then the day goes by. Then Sensei walks into the room, into the I think, isn't that's where Sensei...
I'm trying to remember what drives Jesse Eisenberg, but Jesse Eisenberg, I think because of all this stuff and like, or no, so Jesse Eisenberg was like, you know, upset and like, basically he's being blackmailed at this point by Sensei because he has the assault of the first guy on tape. But he just wants him to keep working for him. So Jesse Eisenberg, the next night, breaks into the school after Sensei's gone, like goes through his files and stuff like that and finds out like all this stuff, picks up a picture and looks at the back of it and finds something else out, puts that back. And then like he passes by a room and all you see is like a blue cast and it's just, you just see the blue cast. He kind of looks at it and he just kind of walks by. And that's really the only part you see about the blue cast right there. But so he gets the key to the locked equipment room, opens it up and walks in and there's
Which is forbidden.
Yeah, it's forbidden to go in there. Sensei says that right off the bat. Forbidden to go in there. So Jesse Eisenberg breaks in and then, so there's a big industrial looking machine with a conveyor belt that you'll figure out in a little bit what that is. But he walks past that and he goes over to this other smaller office that's connected to it and finds all this video editing equipment. And I can't remember the name of the tapes.
Faces and Fists.
Is that what it was? Yeah. Faces and Fists?
So, because at first I was like, Faces of Death? It's like, I've heard of that. And,
right.
And then I'm like, no, it's Faces of Fists. Or something like that.
And so basically
it's his face on the...
Yeah. So yeah, each one is like, basically the Sensei records each of these assaults, like what happened to Jesse Eisenberg, because like anybody that gets their red stripe that's how they get their red stripe. A lot of times, like
they've killed somebody, so
they film all these attacks just to like it's weird snuff, like it's a snuff film essentially.
But it's also a way for him to blackmail his students.
Yeah. And so one's got Casey's name on it. Casey watches it, and it's the video of his own assault. And it's the Asian guy that got the black belt earlier that's assaulting him.
The one that got beat up by
Imogen Poots. Yep. The one who got the black belt that before Imogen Poots that should have gotten it. And she's like, even Imogen Poots is in the video. She's like, stop, you're killing him. Or you're going to kill him. He's like, you're not the only one that should have a red stripe.
Right.
And so like he had intended on killing him. And then like Imogen Poots says like, oh, I hear sirens.
Yep.
And everyone's like, no, we don't. And, like she looks at the camera, obviously talking to Sensei, and says, a woman's ears are more sensitive to stuff like that, or something like that. It says some random fucking statement.
He's like, well, let's go then.
Yeah. It basically saves, it says, oh, take his wallet.
Yeah.
And then like, but essentially she saves Jesse Eisenberg's life, or Casey's life in that respect. So Casey looks at the tape and like just fuming and then just karate chops it in half. Yeah. And so
before you go any further, so he drops after that conversation, he drops Imogen Poots off at her house and
he sees the truck of the guy
that dinged him in the parking lot of the grocery store.
He runs up and karate chops the side mirror off.
And then he leaves frame, and then he comes running back, and he just like karate kicks the tire, and it
pops it.
Pops.
It was funny. Yeah, so he does that. But so getting back, so
the reason why I bring that up is because he karate chopped the tape, and it's just the same kind of thing.
It was the same thing,
yeah. The idea is like, he ain't fucking around.
Yeah, no, he knows his shit. Like, he can do this stuff. And so it's cut to the next day after he sees the tape. Sensei comes walking in, and then he goes to the room where the blue cast is. And essentially what you see now is the fact that the guy whose elbow he broke has hung himself in the dojo. So Sensei kind of just looks at it,
turns the lights on, kind of looks at it, kind of like nudges a little bit, and walks out
shrugs his shoulder. Yeah.
Goes, and then he grabs a sword.
Yep. Grabs a katana off the wall and then cuts the guy down and then drags him into the equipment room where the large machine with the conveyor belt is, which you find out is an incinerator because he burns the body. burns the body, and then it's a 5-minute segment of him cleaning the dojo.
Yeah.
Like
cleaning the
vacuuming,
bathroom
cleaning the
and-
toilets, like
Yep.
scrubbing wiping down the windows.
Going about his daily business.
Yep.
And then putting on his outfit.
Puts on his gi. I think they like to call it a gi, not an outfit.
I'm not taking karate, so it's an outfit.
Puts on his gi, and then, is kind of meditating in front of Grandmaster's picture. To which then Casey shows up and kneels behind him, and he's like, "I want you to know that I hate you." And he's like, and he starts driving off. He's like, "I'm going to kill you,
Yep.
and I want you to know why." And he tells him like why he's gonna kill him and stuff like that. And he's, you find out like Jesse Eisenberg. This is like an exposition moment where Jesse Eisenberg reveals that like he's blackmailing ex-students that don't go to the school anymore for money.
Yep.
That he reveals that the sensei's name is Leslie, which is a far more feminine name than Casey.
Yep. Which you can see stings Sensei a little bit
he even
too.
says, he's like, I'm telling you that so it makes you angry.
And it worked. You can definitely.
And then Jesse Eisenberg just basically pops up. He's like, I challenge you to a fight to the death in unarmed combat. And
Sensei's like, but you'll lose.
Sensei tries to tell him like, I can make you a black belt. You can skip all the other colors.
Yeah.
Just to basically try and shut Eisenberg up. But that's when he challenges him. He's like, but you'll lose. He says, fine. And so Eisenberg goes and gets his gi on, comes out, and they're standing, across the mat, and Sensei bows, and Casey just pulls a gun out of his gi and shoots him in the head.
Yep.
Which was bonkers to be like, I didn't see it coming.
Nope. I had thought about it. Like I said, I told you, it was like when he got the phone call about the gun, and I'm like, he's probably going to still get the gun. And then later on, I was like, I wonder if he's going to like shoot these people or something like that. But I wasn't necessarily going to. It was just one of those like what if things.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting it for sure.
I definitely wasn't expecting it. But
like, I expected it to be one of those things where like he somehow revealed everything to everybody. But no, like he shot him dead in the head.
Straight out shot him like, what?
And then like, he talks some shit. I couldn't tell you what he actually says. Like he talks some shit to the corpse because it's a corpse. And then
he says the line from the movie.
Yeah, he says. He says like, I had two things I wanted to say, and so as not to second guess myself. The first thing I would say was, you probably
he said that because rule number whatever, like the last rule on the little board says guns are for the weak, and then he goes, I was like, well, it's like I am alive, you are dead, so
I think that form makes me stronger.
Yep, and you are the weak one. And then he says, and two,
it's from a line from a movie and
that he was watching earlier.
Yeah, the one that like the gangster movie.
It says you didn't play by the rules, but there were no rules to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. And so the next thing he does, I feel like he says something else, but like the next thing he does is he leans over the corpse, and he comes out of frame, but you hear like a squelching noise. And the next thing that comes up is Jesse Eisenberg's finger, blood red, covered in blood. And he's addressing the night class.
Yep.
He's like, I killed him in unarmed combat using a move that only Grandmaster knew.
Yep.
And he basically is like, does anybody dispute me? And like no one speaks up because he's standing over a corpse.
Which nobody even shrugs a shoulder about.
Yeah, no one flinched at the fact that he's still there. Like this was in the morning when he shot him.
Yep.
So the next few things that happen are,
he asks everybody to hold
out your hands. And he goes on the line checking everybody's hands, and eventually comes to the Asian guy that was originally supposed to kill him, and notices a bandage on his hand or on his wrist. He's like, oh, what'd you do to yourself? He's like, oh, I sprained my wrist. He's like,
oh, how'd you sprain your wrist?
Oh, I was playing guitar. What were you playing? Adult contemporary? And he's like, oh, he tells him to take the wrapping off, and you can see a bite because apparently his dachshund bit whoever killed him. But there's a bite mark, and he's like, everyone knows you can't sprain your wrist playing adult contemporary.
Only metal.
Only metal. That's right. And so like he comes back, and we forgot to mention that Sensei got him a German Shepherd.
Yep. After his dog died.
After his dog was murdered.
Left him a little note on the floor
Left
of
a
his
note
house.
said, be the alpha or he'll rip your throat out in your sleep.
Yep.
That was the note that was left.
Yep.
So at this point, the German Shepherd comes walking in, And he starts speaking in German to the German Shepherd. And he says, "Oh, the man on your left." And the dog goes to the right, and he says, "No, your other left," in German. And so the dog basically turns around and it basically rips the throat out of the Asian guy.
Once again, nobody bats a freaking eye about it.
Everybody, this is indoctrination like to the max. Like no one has flinched about anything. The next thing that happens is Casey pulls out Sensei's black belt and says, "I did not earn this," and then proceeds to award the belt to Imogen Poots.
Yep.
And then, like, once he's done putting the belt on her, she's like, "In line, yellow belt." And so he gets in line and she addresses the rest of the class. The dog is sitting next to the corpse of the Asian guy. Sensei's corpse is still in the back of the room.
Yep.
And she's like, she makes this little speech about how, like, you know, your way of thinking can be better. Like, you can be peacefully aggressive or like, and something else. But like, you know, this is still the night class, so this is still like what we do. So shit just hasn't really changed, but like it's changed at the same point.
There's just a new commander.
Yeah, and
it doesn't seem like they're gonna change their ways. They're not gonna change doing what they were doing.
And
some people are not, you know.
The movie just fades out on Jesse Eisenberg just looking pleased with himself.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's it.
That's how it ends.
Yeah, it's fucking bizarre. It's very dark.
And
great, though.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And there's so many finer points that we, like, in my gloss over, missed. But that are, you gotta watch it. Gotta watch it at least once just to see it. It's well worth it.
I definitely gave it a 5-star.
I'd give that one a 5, yeah. Because there were so many times where I was laughing and saying, "What the hell is happening?" at the same time.
I definitely thought it was great. I mean, I like Jesse Eisenberg. We've talked about this before.
He's a good actor.
He just seems to have this douchey face about him. But I like him. And this was definitely one of those films. I don't know why I didn't watch it sooner. It's been out for a long time. I think it was like 2012 or something when it came out.
No, it's not that old.
I mean, I can look it up. But I don't really know. But all I know is that I should have seen this sooner.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'd been passing it over for a good couple of months.
Oh, no, yeah, it's not that old. 2019 is what it says here.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that can't be right. Really?
Yeah, that seems right.
No, either way, it's fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful movie.
Fantastic.
So those are the 3 movies we watched out of the trailers.
Yeah. Well, did you watch any others?
Not yet.
Those were only 3. Yeah. So I watched Good Boy. I watched Ingrid Goes to West. Changeland +1, The Art of Self-Defense. I watched Grabbers.
No.
And then
Grabbers you said was good. I just hadn't got to it yet.
And then I watched The Disappointment Room. So Disappointment Room, it's very disappointing.
Yeah.
It's Kate Beckinsale was that kind of haunted house ghost story film, and it was really boring. Honestly, I gave it a 2.
Yeah.
Out of the entire thing, I was really disappointed.
Sure.
And then Grabbers, that was good. I enjoyed that one. That was the Irish, like alien thing where these people were pretty much had to stay drunk
because they're like blood sucking aliens.
Yeah, there's like this alien that kind of mutated into this like weird tangly squid or octopus kind of creature that fed off blood. And when you're drunk, the alcohol was what like killed it. Yeah. So it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Definitely gave that one, quite the enjoyment status. It wasn't taken too serious.
Right. Well, I mean, the concept, you can't really take it that serious.
Ingrid Goes West. I won't really mention until you get caught up, but we've talked about this before. I didn't like it. Didn't really care for it. It wasn't horrible. It was supposed to be like this kind of like a comedy, more of like a comedy drama. But it actually had this really just depressing kind of
I think
darkness.
We talked about it for a minute. It almost seems like it was kind of a movie where like you just watched a woman that had some mental issues just fall further and further into her mental issues.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's like, and it wasn't very enjoyable. I didn't enjoy any of it. Yeah. In fact, I was actually a little like God, that's fucked up. Like, this is still happening. She's aware of it too, and she just doesn't.
She's okay with it.
Well, not okay with it. She just can't do anything about it.
Oh.
She doesn't know what to do. She just keeps doing what she's doing because
That's
just what she does. And yeah, you said it best though. We're watching this woman who has obviously a horrific mental disability, and
at least one issue, if not a couple issues.
Several
is going untreated
and she just got out of the hospital for assaulting somebody over what she continues to do, and she spent like a year or so in the mental hospital trying to get better, and then she instantly comes out because her mom apparently died of like a heart attack, and she instantly comes out and she hops right back on the bandwagon.
Damn,
just hops right back into what she was doing. I'm like, wow. So that's kind of. It wasn't a bad film per se. I didn't like it, but I saw kind of an importance to it too. I definitely gave it a 3-star because it wasn't that bad.
Right.
But I didn't enjoy it. I definitely didn't like it, and it definitely the entire time I'm like, God, you just kind of like, what are you fucking doing? Like,
right.
You know you're doing this shit, and you know it's not good, and you know it's gonna fuck you over, but you consistently do it. So it was like, I don't know. But was it Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell, and
Goldie
Hawn's kid, the hockey player? He was a professional hockey player. He's turned actor. He was in it. Elizabeth Olsen was in it. Ice Cube's kid was in it. Yep.
I really think that he probably would prefer if we learned his name instead of referring to him as Ice Cube's kid.
Why? I mean, he even played his dad in the movie.
Right.
So, Good Boy was pretty good. I actually quite enjoyed it. And that was part of that Into the Dark,
yeah. That Hulu, like all the horror shit that Hulu's putting out. Yeah, I just love the fact that fucking Steve Guttenberg's gotten some work again.
Right. That was a pretty good film. For like Judy Greer was pretty reasonable. Yeah. Like I don't hate her, and I don't necessarily. She's funny. Yeah, I don't necessarily love her or anything, but I definitely like the movie. The only thing I wish you get a little bit more. I felt like
a little more explanation.
Yeah, they kind of leave you hanging. I mean, it's not like they left it open ended entirely, but you just don't get a lot of answers.
Sure.
So. Yeah. It was like a detective thing where, like, you get the ending to this detective who's trying to find all these problems. You get all that solved, but you're just like, why is this even a thing?
Yeah.
Like, why did this even happen? And that's kind of what I wanted to know more about. I want a little bit more, like, where did this dog come from and all this stuff and whatnot. It was pretty good, though. I liked it. I gave that one a solid 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the movies that you watched, at least trailers to, and then we actually decided to. I have some trailers now.
Sure.
That I'll quickly list off. So I have at least 6, and these were all on Hulu.
All right.
But I'm going to kind of give you a brief kind of overview. I'm not going to really get into it too much. So the first one that I wrote down on, like I said, these were on Hulu, was Above the Shadows. And I
haven't watched the preview for it, but I know the movie you're talking about.
Yeah, I watched the trailer, and it seemed quite interesting. I
know Jim Gaffigan's in it.
Yeah, he plays like the dad. But it's essentially about this girl who her mom dies, and then she like turns invisible. Yeah. It's just a little weird. She just turns invisible. But it says that it's a young woman who has faded to the point of becoming invisible, must find her way back with the help of one man who can see her. And it's Alan Ritchson or something like that. He played Aquaman in Smallville. He's also in like was it Blue Mountain State or some that kind of football comedy show? I think.
That's Blue Mountain State.
He was he's been in a couple other things. He's kind of like a bigger
one of those guys you'd probably know if you saw him because he's been in just enough.
Probably. But he's also like one of those. He's like those pretty boy model types. It's all ripped and buff looking.
Sure.
And I saw this, and I'm like, that I've never seen him in something like this. But he plays essentially he plays a fighter, a UFC fighter.
Because that's what I thought. It was like an MMA fighter or something like that.
And
the guy who can see her.
Yep,
Tito Ortiz.
Yes, the UFC fighter, or whatever, is in this as well, and that's who he's actually supposed to be fighting.
Huh.
And she is trying to help him kind of get on track of being a good fighter, and he is the only one that can see her. And then they're trying to solve some shit. I don't know. Seems interesting, though. Watch the trailer.
Sounds like a lot of shit going on.
Seems interesting. At first, I was a little hesitant, but I gave it a shot anyway, and I'm like, oh, that actually looks really good.
I'll take a look at it, but yeah, that sounds like a lot of shit going on in that one.
The other one was The Lodge, and this is like a horror. So the last one, Above the Shadows, is kind of like a fantasy drama adventure or whatever. And then The Lodge is a horror, straight up like thriller horror. It looks intense and it looks pretty fucked up.
All right.
So it's about a soon-to-be stepmom is snowed in with her fiance's 2 children at a remote holiday village. Just as relations begin to thaw between the trio, some strange and frightening events take place. So I saw the trailer, and pretty much the dad takes this girlfriend, or soon-to-be stepmom, as it says, and his 2 children from a different marriage up to a lodge or to a cabin so they can kind of get closer, spend more time, and get to know. And the children seem a little off-put about this happening.
Best way to go about that.
Yep, and they don't really want to. Right. What could go wrong?
I was gonna say, yeah.
And so they kind of like resist this whole thing, and the woman is trying her best, but I think the man had to leave, or the dad had to leave all of a sudden, and then it starts to get like a blizzard out, and so they're trapped, and power goes out and all this shit, and then like the stepmom goes up and like she's missing her shit, and then blames the kids, like, why are you taking my stuff and this, and it's like, well, you're the one that keeps running around and making noises and shit at night and stuff, and then shit just starts to get freaky.
Really? Interesting.
So definitely give that one a go. I'm curious. I want to give it a go. It just looks kind of intense. The third film I saw was The Chum Scrubber.
Yep.
And this is an older one. And actually, I watched the trailer, and I remember seeing it a long time ago. And it was like 2005 is when it came out.
Okay.
And I remember seeing it a long time ago, but I don't remember shit about it. Like, I saw the trailer, I'm like, God, it looks fucking familiar. Like, so I know I must have seen it. But it looks bizarre. And it doesn't look like a film that gets taken too seriously.
All right.
So it just says it's a darkly satiric story about life crumbling in the midst of a seemingly idyllic suburban
interesting
place, or suburbia. But it's got a decent cast, and that's what really got me. Was it's got quite the cast. It's got Jamie Bell, who was in like Jumper. It's got Kamel Bell, who I know.
Kamel Bell. He's a comedian. I've seen him before. I know he's.
It's a chick. Camilla Bell.
Okay. I thought you were talking about Debbie Kamau Bell.
No, I've seen her, and I know who she is. I know I've seen her in something. I couldn't place where, though.
Okay.
And then Justin Chatwin, who was in like Taking Lives in the beginning of that film. He plays the boy that the other boy, he's getting ready to go in the military. He was also in the movie The Invisible. He plays the main actor. He was in Shameless. He plays like the boyfriend of the main chick for a little while. Like, he's the business.
I'm gonna be real honest. You're naming off a bunch of shit I never watched.
He's in a bunch of shit. I've seen him in a bunch of shit. He always seems to pop up everywhere. I think he was even in Gossip Girl or something like that. But if you saw him, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Glenn Close.
I know her. Finally hit one.
Yep. Rory Culkin.
Oh.
Yep. Oh man, Ralph Fiennes. I can't.
Fiennes?
Fiennes. Yeah. He's in it.
Is it Ralph or Rafe? Because I've heard both.
I don't know, it's spelled Ralph in my mind.
Richard
Gleason.
Richard Gleason.
Yep.
Who's that?
John Hurd.
Oh, John Hurd. Nice.
Yep. It looks good. Definitely watch the movie.
That's legit.
Looks good. Like I said, it looks like a film that isn't quite taken so serious.
Well, if it's a satire, it's supposed to be kind of goofy.
It's kind of supposed to be goofy, but it looks like it has some.
Well, satires are supposed to be kind of goofy, but they're supposed to have a point.
Yeah, it looks like it really is hitting some marks, and I want to rewatch it. That's the reason why, because it looks so fucking familiar.
Most stuff.
But yeah, and then the other one was number 4 was Middle of Nowhere, and this looked pretty good too. And the biggest person that caught my attention was it has Anton
Yelchin?
Yep. In it, and I really like that guy.
Oh, I think Anton Yelchin's a great actor.
Yep, and
it's unfortunate he died so early.
Oh my god, it's such a shame. Such a shame. But it's like this girl. Oh, and oh fuck, I forgot her name. Is it Susan Sarandon?
Susan Sarandon's an actress.
Plays this chick's mother. So apparently this like young girl was working at like a pool to get some money because she's pretty much trying to save up so she can go to college and leave. She doesn't want to deal with her mom. And her mom's pretty much like this. She looks apparently a bad mother. She like stole money from her own kids and is blowing it away. I don't know. She just looks like she's a fuck up, essentially.
Sure.
And so this chick wants to get away. Well, she hooks up with Anton to do like a business thing, and it seems like it's like a service that's 24 hours. Like people need something, and they go. And I think it's drugs, but they don't really say that it is. And they start to kind of get closer, and then you find out the drama, you know, at home, and it just seems like it's kind of like a comedy drama.
Okay.
Looked pretty good. Give that one a go. I can't find the trailer, so that's or not the trailer. I can't find the
synopsis.
IMDb. So, and then the other one I saw was Anna and the Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, the musical zombie movie.
Yes.
Yep.
I was like, what? And zombie musical apocalypse. It's like they said it's Shaun of the Dead meets La La Land. And I was like, interesting.
Yep, I actually remember seeing a bunch of stuff about it on Facebook because I have to follow the right shit.
Yeah. Well, and I was shocked that this thing's been out since 2017.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
So
I'd heard of it.
Yep. It's pretty much a zombie apocalypse musical. So, and I'm not one for musicals. Like, I'll give this a shot.
There's been, I'd be willing to try it out.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. So I have a couple. Are you done with your trailers?
Well, I have one more. It was called The Dust Walkers.
I saw that preview. It
looks interesting.
Yeah.
It intrigued me.
Yep.
It doesn't really.
That
look
was
like,
going to be on my first list. But.
Yeah. It doesn't look like it's going to be one that is probably going to be very good.
Yeah.
By any means, but it intrigued me just enough to go, well, I want to know what these fucking things are.
Yeah, for sure.
And it didn't look like it was too terrible of a film either. Like,
yeah, it looks like it
looked like it was quality fairly well, so it didn't look like it was too low budget or anything. But
so I'll just give you a couple that I think we should check out. The first one is called Please Stand By with Dakota Fanning.
Yep.
She plays a girl living in a group home who's
I
can't tell.
I've seen it.
Have you watched it?
Yep.
No.
It's actually on my list too.
Yeah, it looked. I watched the trailer. It looked really good.
Super good. Actually, Kaylee put it on, and I happened to just instantly get sucked into it.
But Patton Oswalt looks like the dynamic between her and Patton Oswalt looked really nice.
He's like,
I know. I assumed by the way it looked, I was like, he doesn't have a big part, but he's got to be important.
He is important for the situation that occurs. He plays a very valuable role for that situation, but he's only in it for like a split fucking like 5 minutes. It was a shame too, but super good.
Yeah.
Super good.
For sure. The other one I want to talk about was called The Yellow Handkerchief. And so this is the only point where I'm going to tell you, like, I want you to keep it in mind because it does have Kristen Stewart in it. But I think it's a younger version. It might even be before Twilight. If I don't know, I didn't look at the year.
I feel like this is one that Kaylee told me.
So it's her and Eddie Redmayne are driving.
This is the one that she told me to watch.
The preview looks really good. Like Alan Hurt basically is hitchhiking, and you find out he just got out of prison. And so Eddie Redmayne and Kristen Stewart are driving, and they give him a ride, and he starts talking about the girl that like he left behind when he went to jail, and like he kind of just pushed her away because he didn't want her to like wait for him, and how in love they were, and like part of it is like he's getting a ride to like where they used to live, and he's like at one point he was like, I don't know if she's even still there, like I haven't talked to her in years, and so there's like the two stories, like one are about Alan Hurt, and I think Maria Bello is the actress that plays the girl he left. And then the dynamic between Kristen Stewart and Eddie Redmayne, they almost make it seem in the preview like Eddie Redmayne.
It's like
Kristen
stable or something.
Like there's something just a little bit off about him, like not in a dangerous way, but he just is just a little weird because like Kristen Stewart's talking to him about like, oh, so like you touch me and then like it goes away. And he's like, yeah. And then she starts kissing him. And I was very confused by that part. So, like, I have to, like, I want to watch this in part to understand that dynamic. Because I want to know what Eddie Redmayne's deal is. Because he has some lines in the trailer. But, like, it's really a lot of Kristen Stewart and Alan Hurt talking.
Yeah.
Eddie Redmayne has, like, one little bit in the trailer where he's like, you know, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
But that's it. And so I don't understand Eddie Redmayne's character as much.
Maybe he's secretly a serial killer.
If you watch the trailer, he looks it.
Yeah.
Actually, he doesn't look secretly a serial killer.
He
just looks like a serial, like, because he's driving like an old convertible in like a flannel shirt and overalls. So he definitely doesn't look like someone you want to be alone with, other than the fact that he's like railing thin. But the movie actually sound like, watching the preview, the movie looks really good.
Yeah.
So like I'd like to see it. It's you know, it's a story about redemption and love and whatnot. So it's, you know, it's that. But I don't know. It looks really nice. There's one last one that I thought looked really. I'm not totally certain we should watch it or not. Called Buffaloed.
Yep. It's got Zoe Deutsch.
Yeah.
And I like her. I like her in just about everything I've seen her in.
I couldn't tell you what I've seen her in, but
she's in a bunch. She was in
looked interesting.
Zombieland, Double Tap. She played the cheerleader blonde chick.
Oh, okay.
Her mother's Leah Thompson.
Oh, word?
Yep. And there's a movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but her and her sister. I can't remember her sister's name now.
Joey Deutsch.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't remember her sister's name, but her and her sister and her mom all starred in this, and her sister wrote the script while Leah Thompson directed it.
Well, that's
and it was actually really good.
Well, what the fuck did Zoe do besides act?
Well,
everyone else had a fucking secondary. Everyone else had a second job. Pull your weight, Zoe Deutsch.
She plays the sister. She plays the hot one because she's super attractive. Yeah. But anyway,
yeah, that
I
one
like
looked,
her.
That one looked interesting. Like I don't know. It looked kind of goofy, but it looks pretty buck. It looks buck wild too. Like it.
Yeah, I wanted to watch it.
Yeah,
definitely looks interesting. It caught my eye.
But yeah, I think of all of them, I think The Yellow Handkerchief and Please Stand By are probably the two that intrigued me the most.
Please Stand By was fantastic. I definitely say watch it.
I'll have to fucking take a watch of that one then.
It was fantastic. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. And Ellie Fanning was...
Or was it Elle or Dakota?
Actually, I guess I don't know. Maybe it was Dakota. Yeah, it was Dakota. It was Dakota Fanning. It wasn't Ellie. It was Dakota.
I think it's just Elle.
Yeah, whatever. Elle. It wasn't her. It was Dakota. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't really seen anything that she's been in as an adult, as a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
That I can definitely say stood out, or I couldn't name a single film I've seen her in as an older
I don't really
adult.
know much. The only thing I really know that she's been doing is a show on TNT called The Alienist. It's supposed to be like Victorian era, or not Victorian era, but like, I don't know, fucking Jack the Ripper times.
Oh, no, yeah,
but like not in London. I don't think. I don't know. I have to watch the show. I don't know right now.
Yeah,
they just put out a second season, or they're doing a second season. So
it's super good, man. Watch it. She plays, because she plays a young woman who lives in assisted living because she has extreme autism.
Yeah.
And it was just super good. The whole story is basically her. She's a Star Trek fan. She's just
trying to get her
huge
script
into Star Trek.
Written on Star Trek.
And she's like a freaking just Star Trek whiz kid.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things about autism. Like, a lot of autistic, like, they say they're one of the things that you kind of hear is that, like, they tend to be able to, like, really focus in on one thing.
And she's just trying to make this she wrote a script, a really long script, like 200 and something pages. It was a goddamn novel. And, she was trying to enter this contest, and somebody was supposed to send it off, and they didn't. And so she gets upset, and she decides she's going to take it in matters in her own hand and goes out into the world and does it. And all these challenges and all these things that occur, but it was just super good. I was definitely not expecting to like it as much as I did.
I can definitely say, like, I had
5 stars
I had some emotional, like, just from watching the preview, I had an emotional response to certain scenes. Like the dynamic of the sister coming to grips with, like, the fact that Dakota Fanning's her own person still. Mm-hmm. Like, even though she might have these issues, like, she's still a person. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, she.
Well, yeah, the sister pretty much is kind of having this, like, crisis of accepting that her sister, the Dakota Fanning, is still there, still with autism. Like,
it's not something that goes away.
Yeah,
like
and she just, not gonna get fixed. It seems like she can't seem to comprehend that, you know, it's all flesh and blood. It's her sister. And
I don't know if that is I don't know if that emotional response was made stronger just because Liam's on the spectrum or not. Like, it might be, but I thought that part was very, like, emotionally stirring. Especially when, like, she's watching her hold the baby. Mm-hmm. I was.
Yeah, no, man, it's good. Definitely watch it. Super good. Like I said, Kaylee put it on one day, and I just sat down, and it was super good.
Word. All right.
So give that one a go. Well, the other one was
The Yellow Handkerchief.
Yeah. I'll have to get.
I can't remember what the fuck the Yellow Handkerchief was supposed to resemble, or.
I swear to God, Kaylee told me to watch that one because of Eddie.
Eddie Redmayne?
Yeah, she likes him.
He's a good actor.
Mainly, he is super good. Mainly, she likes The Theory of Everything.
Oh, where he plays Stephen Hawking?
Yeah. And I think she just, because of that role, anytime that she sees him, she really enjoys it.
He's super diverse in what he acts in. Like, I mean, I think he won an award where he played a woman, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah. Recently, the Dutch... I don't remember what it was called. But it was like last year or something like that.
Yeah, last couple of years at least. Yep. But yeah, like, he was playing, like, he played like maybe not a trans woman, but like someone who was trying to be a woman. I can't remember. I know he was in drag for at least part of it. Yeah, and like, he won an award for it. I mean, so he's a legit actor. Like, he's super talented.
Yeah. No,
he's a little off-putting when I look at him, but
I mean, I like him in I liked him in the Fantastical Beasts films too.
Yeah.
But I'm a sucker for the Harry Potter world. Yeah. I'm not like a huge nerdy fan of Harry Potter, but I like the world. I like the fantasy realm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's just everybody, like, that reads fantasy has, like, one way of the world that they really care. Like, one way of the fantasy world. Like, some people like, you know, medieval times or whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with liking, you know, Harry Potter's version of your reality.
Yeah. No, I just watched Spiderwick.
The Spiderwick Chronicles?
Yeah, I just watched that movie this morning. I've never seen it before, and I'm ashamed of myself because it was great. I enjoyed it so much.
I never knew of the books either, so.
Yeah, it makes me want to read the books now.
What is that kid from? I've seen him in other stuff. I know he's in Finding Neverland.
Do you mean like the main boy?
The main kid, yeah.
So he recently.
I know he was in other stuff.
Recently, as an adult, he plays the good doctor. He plays the.
Is that the same guy?
Yep.
Holy shit!
Plays the doctor that has autism and. Yep, that.
I've only seen one episode of that show, but I know who you're talking about.
Yep, that's him. That's his most recent thing. Yep. Otherwise, he was in Oh crap!
He was doing he did Bates Motel before he did the good.
Yes, that was the other one I was gonna say. Bates Motel. I watched like the first 4 episodes, I think, of the first season, and I didn't.
I got through part of the first season and I just stopped.
Yeah, I didn't get very far in that.
I mean, I think the people that really, I don't know. That's a whole
Highmore is his name.
Freddie Highmore, yep.
And he was also Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
That's what I'm
August
thinking
Rush.
of.
August Rush was the other one
August Rush. I
loved.
loved him in. I forgot he was in that movie.
Yep.
Like, I knew there was a kid. I just forgot.
But
that movie was great for any number of things.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
I enjoyed Robin Williams in that movie.
Yes. Because he played a creepy guy.
Yeah.
But
yes, like, but at the same time, like, he didn't have to go too far out of his range to do it either. Like, it wasn't like when he did 1 Hour Photo where, like, he was trying to do, like, this entirely different character. Like, the guy who played in August Rush was just kind of like a bit toned down version of Robin Williams.
Yeah. In August Rush, he was essentially just playing a douche, like just a kind of douchebag. He wasn't like an evil guy. He was just kind of a prick.
Yeah, he was an asshole. He used kids to his own end.
Yeah. So I mean, that's about it. Yeah, but one of my favorite things that they mentioned in August Rush was when Robin Williams, they're laying down and watching the stars. And Robin Williams says, like, music is the universal message. Yeah. And I'm like, it's so true. Every culture in the world has a type of music, whether it's just rhythmic logs and sticks to humming and changing frequencies. It's all music. Yeah. And it's all some kind of connective thing. And I love that so much because it's so true. It's a beautiful film.
Oh, it's a wonderful film.
Sad and in like the most appropriate ways too. Like
I think that drew a couple tears out of me.
Oh, but it was almost. Oh, man, I don't know.
One night we'll do an episode all about movies that make us cry hardest.
Oh god.
We'll have to invest in enough tissues for that one.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a handful of them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely a handful of them.
There's a few movies where all I've seen is like a scene, and like The Iron Giant. Never seen the full movie, but I've seen the ending, and the ending is enough to make me go, okay, I can't watch this anymore. Like,
Iron Giant was good. I like the Iron Giant. Didn't know for the longest time that Vin Diesel was the grunts and groans of the Iron Giant.
I didn't either. Yeah, that's funny.
Well, yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up.
For sure, man. About that time.
Yeah, we'll have to get our music stuff going for next podcast.
We'll get that figured out. We'll talk about concept albums, right?
Yeah, which I have to still
I've got a list.
into.
I've already got a list, so.
Well, yeah, that's what we'll talk about next time. So.
Sounds good. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. We'll talk to you again soon.
This is Timothy Bennett.
This is Aram Banyan.
Have a good one.
Later.
Bye.